Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Today is February 1st, 2022. Happy Lunar New Year. This is a working day for us, though. This is our special meeting prior to the regularly scheduled council meeting. If you're here for that, you don't have to go to a different link, but we do have a special meeting study session prior to that. Madam City Clerk, could you please take the roll call for the special meeting at 5:30?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
Here. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. And as I stated, we have a study session at 5:30 this evening, and the subject of the study session is going to be to discuss the awarded PDA planning grant funds from the Association of Bay Area Governments and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, also known as ABAG-MTC, one consolidated organization now, for the Heart of the City specific plan update in conjunction with the housing element update. And to kick this off, let us go ahead and bring this over to our city manager, Jim Troop, to introduce the presenter. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm actually going to take and turn this over to Ben Fu, our Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Troop, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the introduction. With me tonight is Eric Poveda, project manager for this particular effort here. We also have a number of planning staff on hand as well to help answer any questions that the council or the public may have. I'll just hand this off to Erica. She has a pretty good and detailed presentation that includes some background information on the grant itself, and then what we're asking the council to help us determine. And of course, we're available for questions. Thank you. And with that, Erica.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Poveda. I'm Associate Planner with the Community Development Department, and tonight I'll be presenting on the PDA Planning Grant Funds for the Heart of the City Specific Plan Update. So as we all know, the planning field loves to use acronyms. So in an effort to make this a little bit more user-friendly, we broke down the acronyms that will be most frequently used during this presentation. HOC stands for Heart of the City. PDA means Priority Development Area. ABAG is the Association of Bay Area Governments. MTC is Metropolitan Transportation Commission. RENA means Regional Housing Needs Allocation. And VMT is Vehicle Miles Traveled. The Heart of the City specific plan was first adopted in 1995 with the purpose of guiding future development in the special area. The HOC is considered the most important commercial corridor in the city and spans approximately 596 acres. And more recently, as part of the 2019-2020 City Work Program, Council directed staff to amend the HOC specific plan to clarify setbacks on corner lots, review street tree requirements, update sections like transit corridors, and consider minimum retail percentages. Also in 2019, in response to a call for letters of interest and in anticipation of the sixth cycle housing element update, the city submitted a letter to ABAG and MTC confirming intent to amend the HOC specific plan and to conduct related rezoning and environmental studies by 2025. A PDA is an area with convenient public transit, and that is prioritized by jurisdictions for development of housing, jobs, and services. The HOC is located in the VTA corridors and station area PDA, which is the city's only PDA. And in Plan Bay Area 2050, it focuses new development in growth areas, particularly in PDAs, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address regional housing needs. In January 2021, ABAG and MTC invited jurisdictions to submit applications for the PDA Planning Grant Program to support new and amended specific plans within PDAs, and the Technical Assistance Grant Program to support transportation-related initiatives. Consistent with the letter of confirmation the city submitted to ABAG and MTC in 2019, staff applied for the PDA planning grant to amend the HOC specific plan. Staff also applied for the technical assistance grant for work related to adoption of VMT standards. And in spring 2021, Cupertino was awarded $400,000 through the PDA planning grant, but we did not receive any technical assistance grant funding. The primary goals of the PDA planning grant include increasing housing supply and jobs, reducing VMT, increasing alternative modes of transportation, and retaining and expanding community assets, services, and retail. The draft scope of work was prepared to comply with ABAG and MTC's grant guidance and outlines tasks related to public engagement, community assessment and policy development, and adopted plan documents. And more details on the scope of work can be found in the staff report and attachments. It is important to note that in order to utilize grant funds, the specific plan update must meet all deliverables outlined in the scope of work, including all assessments and analysis, as well as establishing a community advisory council and technical advisory committee. It's also anticipated that the specific plan might need updates related to the housing element update to accommodate some of the city's RENA of 4,588 net new units. So should council decide to move forward with accepting this funding, we have two options for consultant selection. Option one is to issue a new request for proposals for the work. However, there appears to be no grant or city conditions requiring a new RFP to be issued. Option two is to work with the existing housing element update consultant, EMC Planning Group. Staff is recommending the second option due to the fact that there is much overlap in scope of work for both efforts, including public engagement, analysis, rezoning, and required environmental studies. Furthermore, some funds have already been earmarked in the housing element consultant's budget for zoning related tasks in the heart of the city. Should council proceed with option two, all related work required in conjunction with the housing element is expected to be completed by January 31st, 2023. Any additional tasks beyond what's required by the housing element update are anticipated to be completed within 3 years of contract approval as required by ABAG and MTC. And a draft schedule with tentative dates is provided in the staff report and scope of work. Council previously awarded a consultant agreement for the housing element update to EMC for $748,040 and also approved a total project budget of $1,069,248 for all work related to the housing element update. Should council wish to accept the PDA planning grant funds and proceed with the work in conjunction with the housing element, a revised consultant agreement and budget modification will be required. So staff is first requesting council's direction on whether to accept the awarded funds and proceed with an update to the HOC specific plan. And if council does choose to accept the funding, we are then hoping to get further clarification as to whether council would like staff to issue a new RFP for the consultant search or conduct the specific plan update in conjunction with the housing element with EMC as the lead consultant. And depending on council's direction, staff will return in March to revise the consultant agreement and budget modification. And staff is available for questions, and we look forward to your comments and direction.
Okay, thank you very much, Erica. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, First City Manager, for introducing this. Let's just go to our members of the public prior to council questions and feedback. In an effort to be efficient about it, but also to hear from our members of the public first. As with all items this year, please have your hand raised by the time the first person from the public is done speaking, and that is Jennifer Griffin. Only Jennifer's hand is raised at this point, and so I'll remind you, please have your hand raised if you wish to speak on this item by the Jennifer done speaking. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, and welcome.
Happy New Year's to everyone. I reviewed this item, and I have a great deal of respect for our city staff for our EMC group that we're working with, for our city council and our city and the residents. There are things that are troubling about, it's not so much the review of the heart of the city, it's just things that have happened since 2019. I have spent personally a great deal of my time in the last number of years protecting heart of the city, making sure that nothing has happened, to make sure that our trees aren't cut down, we don't become like parts of San Jose, etc. Due respect to San Jose. But I will tell you right now, I do not trust personally MTC or ABAG. They have shown themselves to be a hostile entity since SB 9 and SB 10. This has occurred since 2019. With the passage of SB 9 and SB 10, I do not feel comfortable proceeding with money that is given by ABAG and MTC because it comes with strings. I don't feel comfortable with these two committees, or there's a community council and a technical advisory commission. We ran into this with San Jose's Urban Village Advisory Committee several years ago, and it was a complete, it was bogus. Okay, I'm going to use that word. I think that it's better in the current state, with the drama going on with the numbers of the housing element, that we have two separate consultant groups handling these two different items. We have the housing element going on for whatever purposes, and we have EMC, and that's, we're working toward that. But I don't think at this point we should accept money from MTC or ABAG because they are associated with Plan Bay Area 2050, which I do not trust anyway. I don't want to get rid of LOS. I don't like a lot of the propaganda that's coming out of ABAG and MTC, and I don't like the strings that they are giving us that we have to jump through. We can't settle this in 1 year, and I'm not willing to surrender the city's heart of the city to a group like ABAG and MTC, who have proven themselves to be untrustworthy. And we have enough drama with the housing element, but I do not want us to accept money with strings attached. We will not be beholden to groups such as MTC and ABAG if they're pushing Plan Bay Area. Thank you,
Jennifer. Okay, and so our hands raised at this point from members of the public are from Peggy Griffin and Lisa Warren. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, City Council and staff. I have concerns with extending the contract with EMC. The items that concern me strongly are outreach. By now, there should be over 100 or more people being reached. And when I logged in today to sign up, I was number 43. And a week ago, it was 37. Emails, outreach, there should be many, many different ways of going, and people aren't engaging. So the approach isn't working. I attended last week's Planning Commission meeting when there was a presentation by EMC, and there was data provided, a graph of where the community thought which neighborhoods should be have more housing. And I was surprised. And then luckily, one of the planning commissioners asked, well, how many people provided information? It was 7 out of over 60,000 residents. And that information, this graph should never have been presented because 7 is not valid data. The other thing that concerns me is that also all the density was being put on the east side. There was no west side in any of the slides. The last thing is stakeholders. I've heard that the number of stakeholders is about 10. 10 is not a good number. You have 3 or 4 people absent, you get a very concentrated view. So I think that not extending this contract would be the wiser thing. I also agree with Jennifer Griven. There are too many, a couple questions. What happens if you don't accept the grant? Do you just do the housing element? What happens if the staff or the city disagrees with something that one of the manager of the grant tells you have to do or thinks you should do? If you disagree, do you have to give money back? What happens? Anyway, I think accepting money from with many strings tied is dangerous, particularly since the city is a target for attacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Our next and last speaker on this item is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So I have to, I guess admit is the word, I'm not as informed about this as Peggy and likely Jennifer, given what they've said. But I do have concerns about just extending a contract because it's convenient. Yeah, saving money is a good thing, but not if it's not the best thing overall. And there's already a lot of money being pointed toward EMC. So I'm not sure that linking the two projects is
you know what that is.
As described by staff report. And I'm not completely educated about what is actually being proposed or going on, but I too have a problem with the outreach thus far on the housing element. For some reasons that staff know, and I'm risking something maybe by saying that publicly because I have applied to be on the stakeholders group, and if by saying that I don't get selected, then wow. But I just think it's important to be honest, and so that's what I'm doing, and I'm worried, quite honestly, and I don't think you extend a contract with someone when we don't have any idea how things are going with the first portion of the contract with a huge dollar amount attached to it. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's bring this back to council at this time. So we've had the presentation from staff. We've heard from members of the public. Do we have any questions from council? I do see 2 hands raised. And so keeping note of time, we're just under an hour until our regular meeting is scheduled to begin. And so I will go ahead and allocate 5 minutes at this point for each of our council members for questions. And I'll let you know by 1 minute increments. So first we have Councilmember Moore, followed by Vice Mayor Chow, followed by Councilmember Willie. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. This isn't, well, perhaps this is a question, but I'm a little concerned about extending this contract without having the full information about the performance. And I'm hearing complaints from the public, and I would like to hear what the Planning Commission has, what their opinions are about the performance of EMC to date. And the outreach, we did get a newsletter from someone from the public who was also stating that the outreach seemed to have some issues. And so I'm concerned about the data being reported, the 7 individuals only approving or kind of endorsing where the housing would go. And I think that we need to get a better handle on what's going on with this consultant at this time before we can make a decision.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. That actually didn't quite use up a minute of your time, so I'll move on to and Councilmember Moore, were you inviting any feedback from staff, or did you want to just hold that as a comment?
I'll hold it as a comment, but I think personally, I can't can't support extending their contract and giving them more money without understanding what their performance is like right now. That's one part. And then the other part is what are the downsides of agreeing to accept money from MTC ABAG? Are those valid concerns about being beholden to them, and what are the potential negative consequences for us in our flexibility? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for elaborating on that. And I did start your time up again. You're just over about a minute of your 5. So let's go on to Vice Mayor Chow at this time.
Hi. So for the current consultant, my concern is maybe it's not the consultant. I'm not sure, but we have not, as a council, gotten updates since November, and I think I'm scratching, trying to find information myself. But then I find out the stakeholder meeting, the group turns out to be 10 people with 3 to 5 meetings. Those are not stakeholder meetings. It turns out to be a task force who will be providing policy recommendations to council. So things are not what they seem. So I'm concerned about miscommunication, I guess. My idea of a stakeholder group would be a much wider interview of residents, maybe 1 or 2 hours each with a group, sort of like what the local specific plan did. But now it's a different kind of thing. So I'm a little disappointed in that. And then hearing that only 7 people provide comment, it's concerning. I do have some questions. So I see that the heart of the city is listed in the 2019-20 work program. What we have done on that work program item, because applying for grant in 2021 is no excuse for not doing anything for the prior 2 years. So did we already done something? I'm curious. I think in 2019, we said we want to clarify the setback, clarify the retail percentage, and then the tree selection and other things. So what did we do since then?
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Did anyone on staff have an answer to the Vice Mayor's question there?
Oh, and to clarify the transit corridors, because, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can take an initial stab at it. In terms of what happened in 2021, I think if you recall, we had work program updates back then as well, where due to, I believe, Steve Manager back then discussed about sort of COVID impacts, and that's what this item was not acted on, and subsequently was not prioritized in a subsequent work program. So that explains that particular question. Yeah, I know, Vice Mayor, you had other questions that was.
So you mean the work program item scheduled for 2019-20, we didn't do anything because of all these pandemic and other staffing restrictions.
That's correct.
Right. And okay, so so this 3 years later, now we want to do this again. So if we accept this grant from an MTC, what exactly are the risks? Because we can choose to do this ourselves, or we can accept the grant. So what exactly was the restriction?
About 1.5 minutes remaining of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have Erica speak about the restrictions, but it's kind of use it or not, right? So we don't have to accept the grant. It's not a requirement. It's something that staff proactively went out and applied for, understanding that there's some interest from council early on to do something about this plan. So it wasn't something that we've been told that we have to, and if we don't do it, then we don't get the money back, or we don't take the grant.
It's actually great that staff went out and proactively applied for the grant, and that's great. Really appreciate that. And I think we just want to understand. I think there was one slide about this. Could we get a little more?
Yeah, and also too is we thought the time would track well with the housing element, since one of the not the requirement, one of the goal of this grant is to discuss potential increased housing supply. So we thought it tracks better with housing element efforts.
So, for example, if we add a retail percentage, and it might be necessary to tie it with housing element because it might be perceived as reducing the amount of residential that can be applied to the housing element, right? So it probably should have been done as part of the housing element anyway.
I'll start my time.
Right.
Anyone from staff would like to answer that question, and then I'll move on to Councilmember Willie.
I can try to address this a little bit. In terms of the housing element, the way that SB 330 works is that only if you're reducing the density or intensity of residential uses will the city be, I guess, dinged in a way for establishing a retail percentage, but our requirements already require certain, it talks about in the heart of the city, at least 75% of the buildings that front Stevens Creek shall have retail and at least, or consumer facing uses, foot traffic uses. And the similarity for the back of those buildings, you need to have 50% of those buildings be foot traffic uses. So I don't think that if the council were to establish a clear percentage, whether that could be considered an SB 330 violation, but maybe Chris can also opine on that.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Yeah, so I think what Pete said is correct. Is SB 330 essentially prohibits a net downzoning for residential use. The expectation, because of the additional units that we need to accommodate in our arena, is that there'd be a significant net upzoning citywide. And so I think, any modification or clarification of the retail requirements, we would be required to find those units elsewhere in the city to accommodate the same density at that site, but it wouldn't create an SB 330 issue.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Pugh and Mr. City Attorney. Speaking of 330, that's where my time sits after ceding over about 90 seconds to Vice Mayor. So let's go on to, and I would like to ask a couple of questions. So let's go on to Councilmember Willie and then Councilmember Way, and then I'll ask some of my questions, and then we'll cycle back to those who still have time. Councilmember Willie?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I really agree with our other council and the community that have concerns about what are the details behind this. I'll next go to, when we're talking about heart of the city, which this is focused on, I'd really like to see the heart of the city map so that we truly understand what is being looked at for this grant money. Can staff scramble and try and pull up a picture? I think it's for both our clear understanding, but also for the community. Okay, hopefully they can be doing that. I realize that this grant is about the heart of the city, but how much time thank you very much. So while we have this on the screen, the question to staff is, with this kind of picture on the screen, in a very brief form, what would be the things that would be changed in these areas? Is it, I'm hearing housing, I'm hearing retail, but what other objectives would be for this $400,000 so that the community can kind of understand how these areas might change?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please do.
I think Erica talked about the purpose of the grant. The grant that ABAG MTC is providing is, and Erica, if you could just scroll to the bullet points that you had about that, it's really to streamline housing development and to, it's basically to align greenhouse gases and all the AB 32 goals. AB 32 is a state law that basically says that land use and transportation should be aligned. And so, and how the whole purpose of the regional plans is to make sure that those transportation and land use does align. And this grant kind of feeds into that whole overall goal and strategy that they have, which is to increase housing and supply and jobs in what is considered a transit corridor, thereby reducing VMT and allowing increased alternative modes of transportation. And at the same time, they want to make sure that the community gets a chance to provide input and let inform the plan for where it wishes to retain and expand what they consider community assets, services, retail, whatever else that they wish to retain in this area.
Yeah. So I'll go back to trying to describe why I see a big deficiency between that verbiage and the picture of the HOC. The picture of the HOC conveys to the community and us what is this composition currently consisting of, and then when you talk about the specifics about housing versus jobs, maybe VMT reduction, things of that, how that would impact these areas. Because just with verbiage like that, do we really expect the community that are not planners to be able to understand this? So I'll leave it at that I think there can be significant improvements in the delivery. And I'll leave my last comment that I also share the council's concern that where is the planning commission? These things are crucial to our community, and the planning commission is our connection to the community, one very important connection. And for them not to even have information for us at this juncture, I see that as a big deficiency. So how much time do we have? Can we bring this back to consider the 400,000 when we have more of an understanding of what it would tie our hands to and what it would do for the community? I'd like to know that before we vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Willie. I'll stop your time there. I'll start my time before we go to Councilmember Way, because I did have an immediate follow-up to that last comment / question of yours. So what are the deadlines here for our city staff? What are we looking at in terms of when we would need to act to keep our options open with regard to this grant funding award?
Sure, I'll answer that. So there's no set deadline for when to accept the award. However, we have been in talks with MTC and ABAG, just giving them updates. They do know about our study session tonight. And I believe that they are hoping that we are able to move forward. But like I said, there's no set deadline at this time.
Okay. I'll follow up when it comes to my turn. Let's go to Councilmember Way. Councilmember Way, did you want to ask your questions at this time?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I was reading, it says this grant is requiring our city to do the equity assessment, affordable housing and jobs assessment, mobility assessment, community assessment, service infrastructure assessment, resilience climate adaptation assessment, and also have two advisory committees. It's a community advisory committee and a technical advisory committee. So my question to the staff is, if we don't accept this grant and we still have to do our housing elements and our heart of the city, work plan, do we still have to do some of these assessments? I don't see this grant as to constrain our city that we have to do anything, but it provides us assessments so that we can use those to move forward with our housing elements and other general plan amendments if we want to do that. Am I interpreting it correctly?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know that the city is also considering maybe doing a retail assessment citywide. And so potentially some of this, the money that is going to be used for retail assessment for the heart of the city could, be a portion of the funding for the overall city plan for retail uses potentially. So it does feed into it. It does inform the process. All of these reports will inform the visioning process for the city and also what the market needs are, et cetera. But of course, these are all the studies that that are being recommended so that we can, as a city, come up with that vision for this area.
Mayor Paul, can I follow with another question?
Yes, you have about more than 3 minutes.
Okay, so I think the community's concern is that if we accept the money, somehow we're tied. We have to do something required of the ABAG or MTC. I don't see that. I see this a grant to help municipalities to do assessment so that we have more information to make decisions. Do you think is that a correct assessment? That's what I understand about the grant?
It certainly does align with the way that it's been explained to us.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Way. So your time stands at a little bit more than 2.5 minutes. I have a little less than 3 left, so let me go ahead and start my time here. Yeah, I would like to have a little bit more clarity as to what our allowances are under this grant. It does sound to me that if we've been awarded the $400,000 and we haven't been given an indication that this is going to expire at any time in the foreseeable future, there doesn't seem to be a deadline directly in front of us this evening. I'd like that reiterated, and I would like to know what the potential options are for us going down the line if we at this time don't decide to automatically provide this grant funding to an existing vendor. So can someone from our staff speak to that and just elaborate upon what the possibilities are from your own perspective of being able to apply this in the future? Because, Eric, I'll mention a comment that you made specifically. You said something along the lines of, at this time, MTC is not indicating that they're going to be taking back the funding. But I'd frankly like to know, well, what would, what would make that tend to happen? I don't really see why we're running up against a decisional deadline at this point.
Or I'd be happy to coordinate with ABAG and MTC on this question. As mentioned in the staff report, we were awarded these funds back in spring of 2021. So I can talk to ABAG and MTC to see how long we have to formally accept or deny the funds according to their timeline.
Okay, so is it possible that looking over the materials of the grant application or the request for applications, there could be some further clarity, or would there need to be a specific discussion as to when this amount of funding would need to be identified for who is to receive it and what we specifically are planning to do with it in terms of a timetable? Would it help to look at the application request or no?
To my knowledge, that was not included in the application request.
But it didn't indicate, okay. Well, I guess that would be my follow-up request, that we get a little bit more clarity on that. Okay, so I'm pretty much out of time at this point. Our city attorney does seem to have a microphone off. Can I borrow a minute from somebody? I see 3 hands raised. I don't want to volunteer anyone's time, but thank you, Councilmember Moore.
Just a moment, Mayor Paul.
Yes.
If we have time, can't our time be extended? And I don't see why we're being limited if we have enough. This is our only.
Yeah, no, it's at my discretion, but I want to be fair to people, right? I mean.
Okay. So I think I had perhaps 4 minutes. If you'd like one, please.
I greatly appreciate it. So, City Attorney Jensen, did you have a follow-up on that? I think it's a fairly straightforward question, just asking what the deadlines are on the application and the grant funding.
Yeah, so the only additional information I can provide is that once we enter into an agreement with MTC, we would have 10 years to spend the funds. We don't have that agreement yet. I do not know whether there is a deadline for actually entering into the agreement.
Sorry, I did want to provide a point of clarification. The attorney is correct that we have 10 years for a master funding agreement. However, for this specific grant, the PDA planning grant, once we do enter into a agreement for this grant, we have 3 years to spend the funds. So that's a slight change in timeline.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. We'll go to you next with regard to your follow-ups. You have about 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I guess first question, did this go to the Planning Commission? If it did not, and actually even if it did, I'd like to kick it back there. And because they right now are the experts on the housing element process, they know more information about it than we do. And I think we should send it back and get an update that way. I do want to take issue with calling Stevens Creek Boulevard a transit corridor. Sure, it's a transit corridor. It has a bus, though. It's just a bus transit corridor. It's been called quality transit because it has a 15-minute frequency. And we've been putting in bike lanes. Trying to improve the transit there is going to be a challenge. We don't have any parking on the sides of the street. We've been putting in protected bike lanes, which even eliminates some of our options. And so I take issue with that. One of the slides says that MTC ABAG wants to increase housing and jobs. To me, that gets a big question of why the jobs part, especially when we have the Valco SB 35 project has so many jobs added that it's leaving us with a 3,410 minimum housing residential unit deficit. So, why would ABAG be forcing more jobs on Cupertino? I don't understand that. And with regards to the retail assessment citywide, I don't recall that that directive from council. I do appreciate it. I think it is needed, but I'm a little bit concerned about that. And lastly, if this grant was awarded in spring of 2021, why did it take a year to come to us to be discussed? But going back to the start, I would like this kicked back to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Your time says about 1 more minute remaining. And did you want to provide that to Vice Mayor Chow to follow up? And point well taken. We can add a few more minutes for people, but I'd like to kind of get through our questions at this point.
Sure. If Vice Mayor needs it, by all means, and then if we can extend some time, I'd appreciate that as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Vice Mayor Chow, you have about a minute.
So reading the guidance document from ABAG, I don't see any sort of restrictions. They require robust community engagement, which is great. They require assessment, but how to do it is all recommendations. So I really am confused. Why people think there are restrictions? I think there are not really restrictions. But then my question would be, whether we accept the grant or not, which part of the heart of the city would be updated with the housing element? Do we plan currently to update part of the city with the housing element?
Oh yeah, we don't really have time for a response on that unless okay. So let's go on to Councilmember Willie. You have about half a minute left. Well, although I guess I could check in with Councilmember Way. You have about 2.5 minutes left. Did you want to provide a little bit of time to Vice Mayor Chow to ask staff to respond to her inquiry there?
Sure.
Okay, great. So staff, could you respond to Vice Mayor Chow's comment and question at this point?
I could try to answer that question.
Thank you.
In terms of updates to the housing element or housing element sites, or an update to the heart of the city specific plan area, it is possible that there might be some housing element sites in that area, and that's why we're thinking that there might be some zoning or general plan amendments required in that area. Of course, nothing's been decided. We don't know what the sites are. We're of course going to go to Planning Commission and City Council before proceeding on any of that.
I guess my question is the current contract with this consultant, would that have covered the heart of the city portion related to housing element anyway?
Only for the very specific general plan or zoning amendments that will be required related to the housing element sites.
Mhm.
But the heart of the city specific plan update for the, as envisioned under the, this particular grant might go above and beyond with the sites that are covered under the housing element. And apologies if I didn't understand the question earlier.
And my question regarding the restriction under the grant, there is not really a required way of doing things, right? There's not really a restriction we are looking at.
I don't think
If we
that's,
accept.
I wouldn't think about it as a restriction as much as a requirement of the process. They're basically saying that you're required to do these studies in order to make an informed decision. And those are the studies that they're asking for. And then they're also saying, well, you need some technical advice, as a result of which we want the technical advisory committee. And we also want some input from the citizens at large. And so we want you to form a citizens advisory committee. So they're trying to put some structure around the process itself. And so they're asking and requiring for grantees to provide those two groups.
But they didn't really specify exactly how you would do it, right? They just say, this is good that you have.
Okay, let's shut this down here.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and reserve about half a minute for Councilmember Way. Thank you for your allocation of time. And let's go on to Councilmember Willie. Councilmember Willie, you also had about half a minute left. Did you want to ask another quick follow-up question or make a comment at this time?
I think it's mostly comments. And so I'm feeling that from a resident engagement, community engagement point, I'm feeling that there's a real deficiency. And so I think we need more detailed engagement updates throughout the process. We need, and the community needs, to feel they know what's happening and that it's going well before we enter into something for which they, without transparency, the community can feel things are being done at City Hall without them knowing. And so
great. So that's your time. I promise to bring this back to council for another round. Actually, I'm going to use my remaining 6 seconds here. It's not a question, it's just a quick comment. I would, in fact, support referring this to our planning commission at this time. Councilmember Way, you have about half a minute left. Did you want to ask a quick question or?
Yes, I really want to ask this question. There is no, I don't see a downside accepting the $400,000 grant. Whether we want to use it with the current company or not, I think that could be a discussion. But I just don't see the downside. I mean, it's asking us to have citizens groups. It's asking us to do more research and do more assessment. I think the goal is for the city to make informed decisions. And so I see that it would save us money because on some of the studies, we might have to spend our own money to do it. So I don't see the downside of it. I think maybe the issue is whether we should go with this company or wait until something else. So I'm okay for the planning commission to check it out, but it would be very, I think we can use the money to, do the assessments.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll give you a little bit more time because of your generosity with your time earlier. Okay, I think I'm hearing some potential consensus direction here. I do hear agreeability to refer this to Planning Commission. I'm going to go ahead and start a 3-minute timer here. Let me start on this one. So I think that it would be good to refer this to Planning Commission first and foremost, and also to get a sense of what is it that we need to be doing in order to have a kind of a broad-based and even-handed housing element identification process, right? Because if we're identifying one particular part of the city, in this situation, heart of the city, and we're having a very significant allocation of additional funding there, it almost looks like we're creating a bit of a qualitative statement with regard to where our preferences are in terms of allocations. And I know that none of us really want to do that. We don't want to make it seem like it's some kind of foregone conclusion. We want to be fair to every person in the city, irrespective of where they live. So I would like to see whether we can ask staff to keep this open with that consideration in mind. Also, yes, please do go back to our planning commission and give us a sense of what the options are. I would be happy to entertain a motion at this point, but I would like to get a further sense of what we can be doing if we wanted to accept the grant funding at this point and preserve our options with regard to the timing of when it's spent. I'm a bit discomfited right now directing what's being requested in terms of putting this in lockstep with the current activities of our housing element consultant, who I think should be, casting a wider net and not, winnowing in on a particular area of the city. So let me go to Councilmember Moore, who has a hand raised. Councilmember Moore, first off, did you want to set forward motion for direction? And, I take it, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that if there is no direction, that essentially this doesn't get accepted and we don't move forward, with this particular item. But I'm sure that we'll get an update in the future per, my prior question as to what will happen to grant funding. And I'm sure we'll get sufficient notice as, all of our agencies are reasonable, and so would provide us adequate notice. Councilmember Moore?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So for a motion, I would agree to send this back to the Planning Commission. I would like to decouple this heart of the city specific plan from the housing element and look at it as a separate process. I think what happens when you pile it on to the current one, you end up having a de facto overweighting of that particular corridor. And what I'm not hearing is what sounds like wisdom for our future, because they're telling us to increase jobs in a corridor which is already very jobs heavy and residential deficient. So I have a problem with that. So I would like to send it back to PC, Planning Commission, for their feedback. I'd like to hear about the housing element process, what their comments are. We should have perhaps have received that already, but I want to hear how it's going and what their thoughts are on decoupling the process and who they think we should have as a consultant.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. I'll stop your clock at this point. Let me ask if anyone would like to second Councilmember Moore's motion for the purposes of continued discussion. Vice Mayor Chow, I see your hand is raised next, and so I'll go to you. Did you second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second on the table. Vice Mayor Chow?
The guidance document doesn't really say you have to increase jobs. It just says increase jobs / housing. The community can decide we don't want to increase jobs. It's okay. So I think we actually should accept the grant. But I think this is a little too late to start assessment. If we had done that last spring, we could do an assessment and now we can start planning. And then it might make sense to couple that with housing element. But right now the timing doesn't make sense. So it seems it should be a separate process. But I'm concerned about, it seems the guidance document is written for a new specific plan. So it has very wide, robust community engagement. But for our case, we are doing probably like a minor update. And I'm just want to confirm that, can we choose not to do as much assessment since this will be a minor update of the specific plan? Or do we want to take the chance? I guess we can also take the chance to do a full assessment in preparation for other future planning. But we won't be able to do it in time for this housing element.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. I don't see a further hand raised at this time, although Councilmember Moore, you do have your hand raised. Let me briefly interject here as I have a bit of time, or actually, let me check in with Councilmember Woolley or Councilmember Way. Did either one of you have a comment to speak to the motion that's on the table? Councilmember Way?
I do have a question because I look at the timing. The housing element, we need to do it before January 2023, but this has more time. So all the assessment don't need to be done at the same time. We can pick what we need for the housing element and wait to do the others. Am I interpreting it correctly? That's a question for the staff.
Okay, let's open that back up. So is Councilmember White correct in that observation, staff?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you very much. So let me, Councilmember White, did you have anything else, or can I make a quick comment? Okay, great. So I'll make a quick comment before we go to Councilmember Moore. Yeah, again, I agree with the motion that's on the table right now. I'll go ahead and support that. I don't think we're under any heavy time-intensive crunch. I think that it would be better to make a determination based upon hopefully broad-based input that we're getting throughout the city. I hope that the effort to reach out to the entirety of our population and the focus on equity, stays there. And I think that we should make that determination as to, where these sites are, ultimately allocated. If this funding is available to help us with the part of the city specific plan later, great. It sounds like the money will still be there. Okay, so let's go to Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So I think that equity term is a really great one, because it looks like one part of the city is being asked to shoulder most of the burden and leaving areas that are particularly on the west side uninvolved. I'm concerned that we haven't been transparent with regards to what's looking like particular neighborhoods within the city are going to be upzoned, and that if you only have 7 individuals who are pushing for that, and the people who actually live in those neighborhoods haven't been informed that within the next year, city council might upzone your neighborhood. Did you know this was going to happen? And they go, no, I think we've got a real problem. So I think we need to be a lot more forthcoming and transparent about what we're doing. And by we, in this case, it's our consultants that need to let the residents know that this is what is happening, and to be fair to them. So I think equity is a really interesting word. What does it mean when it applies to this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Vice Mayor Chow.
And in terms of timing, this item was on the council work program in 2019, and now if it seems the consensus is to decouple it from housing element, I wonder whether we should still put out a call for proposal right now before we decide whether we accept the grant or not, because whether we accept the grant or not doesn't change the fact that we need a consultant to work on heart of the CTS update. So I wonder what the council members think about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. So Councilmember Moore, let me go to Councilmember Willie first before calling back on you. Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, so I do feel that it should be clearly decoupled and not automatically assigned to EMC. I really think we need to know either how good they're currently doing or how lacking they're currently doing before we assign more money to them. I feel that it sends the wrong message to the community. This train is going down the track and we're putting more fuel in the engine without the information to the community on how well it's going, that it is being equitably spread out through the whole city. And so I think we need to bring it back to us. I support the motion on the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Willie. Let's bring it back to Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to perhaps comment on the Vice Mayor's suggestion. And I think looking at some of the requirements that there seem to be from MTC ABAG, that if staff were to circulate the request, that they would have to put in the ABAG requirements for the CAC and the TAC. So if the city were to do it on their own without having the MTC ABAG requirements, they might come up with a different request for proposal than what they would have to do for MTC ABAG. And staff can clarify that if that's the case.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. So let me go to let me go to staff if they wanted to follow up on any of these points with a kind of an omnibus question. Do you feel like you have sufficient clarity from the council's discussion? There is a motion on the table to refer this to the Planning Commission. I believe that there are other points that have been made to try to preserve our options and make sure that we get some clarity as to the timing of the availability of these funds, but also to apply this in a manner that doesn't make it appear to be a predetermination as to where the site selection looks like on the housing element work. So yeah, no, I see staff, Pew, you're shaking your head. So that's great. I mean, it's good to know that we're all on the same page there, and we're trying to be fair to everyone in the community. I'll invite that question before we vote, because it does sound like we all have an appetite to have the utility of that funding. I will note this is the first time this has been visited upon council since the grant funding was awarded. And as a matter of first impression, I think there is that appetite to utilize it, but to utilize it in a manner that perhaps isn't directly tied midstream to, I know it's 700,000 something, but the totality of the allocated monies were almost $1 million, to this consultant not so long ago. And so is there clarity there? And I see our director of the planning department, Ben Fu, has a hand raised. Director Fu, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would just say that we've heard the council loud and clear, and we will continue to coordinate with ABAG MTC and get some of these clarity sorted out, and then go through the planning commission when we come back and get more recommendations before we bring it back to you.
Yeah, and there's no harm in providing the city manager with occasional updates to let us know, what's coming down the pipeline, because of course that informational update can be, can be provided to council along the way. On an individualized basis, of course, without creating a group communication. Councilmember Moore and then Vice Mayor Chow, let's go ahead and wrap this, as there is guidance in this motion on the table. I would like to take a roll call vote, as well as give us about 10 minutes before the regular meeting starts. Councilmember Moore?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I was just wondering if we're getting some credit for SB9 units, and if when this goes to the Planning Commission, that could be discussed there as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take that as an advisement in the referral, so council can ask or is asking city staff to follow up on that. Vice Mayor Chow.
So the guidance document does say there is a required minimum of 3 community meetings, 3 technical meetings, and language translation for population of 10% or more. So these are things probably we won't do for a minor update of the specific plan. So I wonder if we can use the funding for a new specific plan for maybe the Monta Vista area. The Bob Road and that area probably need a new specific plan. Could we apply that? Because that seems more suitable. And then when it comes to the Planning Commission, I hope that the staff can clarify what we would have done if we were doing a minor update and compare to what we are required to do by this grant proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off after we have a couple more comments, one for Councilmember Way and Councilmember Moore. We can't just go endlessly on our comments. And so Councilmember Way.
I don't have a comment. I just want to know. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I don't have a comment. I just want to know the motion.
The motion is to refer this to our Planning Commission and to take direction based upon our discussion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I just want to express my appreciation for the comments from the Vice Mayor, because I think I personally would like to hear some recommendations regarding the Monte Vista special area, and if there's any other specific plans that we should be looking at to update at this time and get that rolling along with the heart of the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. It is now 6:35. Our regular meeting starts at 6:45, and so we will see you back, same link here in approximately 10 minutes. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Today is February 1st, 2022, and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Cupertino City Council. I'm Mayor Darcy Paul, and Madam City Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Moore,
Present.
Councilmember Way,
Here.
Councilmember Willie,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Here.
Mayor Paul.
Here. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We start off our meeting with ceremonial items and presentations. And this evening, I'm particularly moved and happy to be able to provide our ceremonial matter number 1. This is a reissued proclamation to Paul Heyer, who was initially provided this proclamation in 1991. And I do see Paul has joined us. Thank you very much, Paul. And with your leave, Paul, I'd like to share with the public, if you're okay with it, the initial email that you sent me on the 19th of January, the day after our last council meeting.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. So as I stated, I received an email the day after our last council meeting on January 19th. And Paul wrote to me, Mayor Darcy, I was born in the Bay Area and raised in Cupertino. I attended both Cupertino High School as well as De Anza College. I graduated from Cupertino High in 1988, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Due to the time period, I was in the Gulf War 1990 to 1991. I'm not sure if ceremonial matters are still a practice of the City Council, but at that time it was, and I have attached the meeting minutes for May 20th, 1991. On page 2, it lists my name concerning ceremonial matters. I just so happened to be on leave at the time, visiting family in Cupertino, and returned from the war. Mayor Barb Koppel invited me to City Hall and presented a proclamation for my service in the Gulf War. See attached pictures of the proclamation. I was young and just returned from the war. I was not interested in the recognition since the war was a traumatic event in my life. Thus, this Cupertino recognition document was buried and thankfully not thrown away or destroyed. Now a father, my 16-year-old son is interested in my past and pulled a dusty box out of storage and asked me about this event. Time and maturity seems to heal many things, and I am in a place to share. My son would like to preserve the document and frame it. Looking at the attached pictures, you will notice it seemed to have aged like me, a little rough around the edges. And so Paul went on to request that we have a reissued proclamation as well as send him our current seal. And I'll go ahead and for the purposes of being able to share this, show you a copy of Paul's original proclamation. As you can see, it's quite different from our format currently, but you do see the mooring on helmet at the top for City of Cupertino and proclamation. Sure enough, it was significantly weathered. The seal of our city, and we still have this issue with our current seal, the sticker peeled off. And so I was extremely moved by this and thought that this would be a wonderful opportunity to share this with our community and to be able to reissue a proclamation as requested by Paul in honor of his service to the community, but also for keeping in touch and having that interest in giving us this opportunity to be able to reach out to the community and share this real treasure from our past from 31 years ago. And Paul, did you want to say a few words at this time with regard to the proclamation or your experiences?
I just wanted to say thank you, Mayor. I mean, I think I conveyed it in the email that, in our exchange and the way it was handled, I know the city of Cupertino is in good hands, and it sounds like it's in good hands with the council as well. So I really appreciate that. And it's going to be a treasure for my family. They're actually here. They just can't get visible on camera, but thank you so much.
Absolutely. Very, very pleased to do it. And on behalf of council and our community, thank you once again for the service and thank you for reaching out. At this point, we're going to ask that council take a quick Zoom photo with you. And so our other members, if you could please cut your cameras, and I'll ask the video division to put up the placeholder that they have for indicating that this is a proclamation in your honor. So just look straight at your camera and we'll pause for a moment. Great. Well, thanks very much. Welcome back to the fold. You know, I didn't mention this in our correspondence, Paul, but your current address is actually just about 50 miles due south of where I was born in Columbia, Missouri. So it was really interesting to hear that connection as well. So thank you so much again, and you know, have a great rest of your 2022. And we might see you. You had mentioned that you'll be possibly around for the July 4th celebration. So hopefully, you know, things open up back again at that point, and we'll, you know, perhaps be able to meet in person.
That'd be great, and I'd be honored. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, our second item on tonight's agenda is ceremonial matter number 2. That's item 2. This is the recognition of our Fine Arts Commission Artists Award winners. And I believe that the chair of our Fine Arts Commission is here today to provide a presentation with regard to those award winners. Welcome, Chair Kazimsetti of the Fine Arts Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, dear City Council members. My name is Sudha Kazimsetti. I'm the Fine Arts Commissioner Chair, and I'm immensely proud to be presenting 2021 Artist Awards today. One of the goals for our Fine Arts Commission is to foster and encourage artistic expression and achievement in the fields of visual and performing arts, while preserving and advancing the arts for the benefit of the citizens of our Cupertino. Each year, the Commission presents awards to deserving artists in recognition of local talent in these fields. This evening is very special to me and all of us. We have 3 categories. The Distinguished Artist Award recognizes the established artist having a substantial body of work that display merit and excellence. The next category is Emerging Artist Award to encourage and recognize demonstrations of artistic promise. The Young Artist Award is present to deserving young artists within the age group from 6 to 14 years. We have received huge number of applications this year, and it was our pleasure to see such talent in our community. So without any further delay, I'm pretty excited to announce the winners. So first category, Young Artist, Group A. Group A is for artists aging 6 to 10 years old, and our silver winner is Audrey Lynn. Audrey is 10 years old and goes to Mudrock Portal Elementary School. Big round of applause to Audrey. And that's her beautiful work next to her picture. Our next gold winner, Young Artist Group A, is Sanvika Mishra. Sanvika is 10 years old and entered a musical piece called Save the Earth. Here is a preview of her beautiful artistic work.
Lush and colorful gardens, graceful rolling hills, vast and celestial ocean, rich and dense forest.
Thank you very much. That was truly, truly soulful. Our next winner is Platinum Group A. Can't get enough of that musical piece. So Platinum winner is Ivy Ma. Ivy is 8 years old and studies art at Hongyan Art Studio in Cupertino. Our Group B silver winner is Sava Ono. Group B is for artists 11 to 14 years of age. Sava is 13 years old and is in 8th grade and attends St. Joseph of Cupertino. Congratulations once again. Our next Group B gold winner is Nishant. Nishant is 14 and attends Monta Vista High School. Congratulations again. That's his piece of work next to his picture. Our Group B platinum winner is Chloe Yoon. She is 14 years old and attends Cupertino High School. Congratulations. That was young art. That was first category. Our next category is emerging artist. Emerging artist gold winner is Arav Kungar. Arav attends Cupertino High School and submitted a musical piece. He is one of the youngest members to join the elite club of the choir. So here is a preview of his musical piece. Thank you. That was really beautiful. We have two gold winners. We have two gold winners in emerging category, and our next gold winner is Apurva. Apurva attends Saratoga High School. As an artist, Apurva finds joy in making everyday object looking very special, and that's her artwork right there. Our emerging artist platinum winner is Eric Yoon. Eric creates art based on events that occur around the world, which is very much necessary in today's times. Inspired by the news and personal experiences, Eric hopes to provide viewers to consider some of the serious issues that our world is currently facing. And when we were judging his artwork, we were truly blown away with what he has created. That's Eric's work right next to his picture. The next category is Distinguished Artist, and we are extremely proud to present Kalpana Adesara as our Distinguished Artist winner. Kalpana has been an active member of Fine Arts League of Cupertino and currently serves as the co-publicity chair. Knowing how important art was her for personal development, Kalpana made it a point to share her learnings with others in her community. Kalpana became an avid teacher who teaches in Cupertino Union School District, but also runs her own individual art studio to teach youth. She also serves as a volunteer art teacher for many, many organizations. Thank you, Kalpana, for serving the community. So that concludes our presentation. Big congratulations once again to our winners. We will have a display of their artwork on the library very soon. Please do look for them. And a big thank you to my fellow commissioners and our liaison, Rachel. And last but not the least, our city council members for all the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Kazim Seti. And indeed, I join my fellow council members in their applause for all the hard work of the award winners as well as the commission. At this point, we'll take a quick group shot. And so I did notice that one of the members that, one of the recipients that you were mentioning, Chair Kazim Seti, was actually in the attendees. So if you are an award winner that was just named, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll go ahead and ask you to turn on your camera if you're already a panelist. And oh, you're good, Kalpana. So we can get you in the group shot. And if you happen to be an attendee, please feel free to raise your hand as well, because I know that not always the names match with who is on. So I see one raised, Sanvika Mishra. Okay, so let me go ahead and promote to a panelist. And Sanvika Mishra, please feel free to turn on your camera once you are into the panelist area, and we'll go ahead and take that group shot with council of the award winners, as well as our representative from the Fine Arts Commission. And I don't see the additional photo. So Sanvika, did you want to turn your video on to, oh, there you go. A little bit of backlighting, but at least you have the name, so congrats, wonderful. Okay, so we'll wait okay, so we'll just pause for a minute, look into the camera, smile, and thank you. All right, great. So that's the second item on our agenda this evening. So that concludes our ceremonial matters. Madam City Clerk, did we have any staff requested postponements and orders of the day at this time?
No postponements, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and no requests from members of the community either, I take it on that front?
That is correct, Mayor.
Are there any postponements, orders of the day requested from our members of the council here? Okay, seeing no hands raised on that, let us go to oral communications. Oral communications is for any matter that members of the public would like to speak about that is not on our agenda. And so you'll be provided 3 minutes to speak on any item that is not agendized. Council cannot take action on it. However, we can direct our city staff to follow up shortly after oral communications is concluded. I see a member of our public, Peggy Griffin, with a hand raised. And so furthermore, I will ask our members of the public, if you wish to speak in oral communications, please have your hand raised by the time our first speaker, Peggy Griffin, is concluded speaking. And so we will now begin the oral communications. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff and the audience. I hope I say this right. Kong Hei Fat Choi. Happy New Year. I wish you all the best, and I thank you for your service. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Peggy. That was very, very wonderful. Well, Happy New Year to you. Happy Lunar New Year to you as well. And so let us go ahead. I don't see any additional hands raised at this time from members of the public. And so let's bring this back to our next part of the agenda. The next 3 items are under reports by council and staff. Item number 3 is a set of brief reports on council member activities and brief announcements. I want to thank everyone for bearing with as I was reading the correspondence from Paul Heyer. I'm going to let that be my report out from January 18th, since our last meeting. Would anyone else on council like to provide a brief 1-minute report out with regard to activities that are not part of our regular council assignments since January 18th and our meeting then? And I do see a hand raised from Councilmember Way. So Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So I attended the New Mayors and Council Members Academy by Cal Cities, and there are quite a few good sessions. It's good review because I'm still pretty new as a 1-year-old council member, so it was a good session for me to attend. And also I attended the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. They presented a REACH code information meeting to me and another council member, and that's really a very informational. And also a couple of other housing elements seminars that's hosted by Cal City's Peninsula Division and also by the League of Women Voters of Cupertino Sunnyvale. So housing elements going on, so I'm paying attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Way. Would anyone else like to provide updates before we go on to item number 4? And I don't see any further hands raised from our council. And so let us go on to item number 4 at this time. And so this is report on our committee assignments. Our committees are assigned at the end of December, or actually I think it was near the beginning of December this year. And so does anyone have any committee report outs that they would like to share with our members of the public at this time, since we last met on January 18th? Councilmember Way.
Okay, so I attended 2 committees. One is, I was representing last year too, is the Valley Water Commission. And we talk about, the shortage of water, where it comes from. So, we're still in the very extreme drought. So there are a lot of good discussions in there. And then one of the new committees that I signed and got a meeting is the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperative Authority Board of Directors. Is totally new to me. So I learned from Councilmember Willie, who was a representative last year, to get to know what is it about. It's emergency announcements, connections when for disasters to connect all cities. So it's a very interesting board. So I would like to learn more about it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Way. I'm really glad that people are getting that cross-referenced experience. It's good to have a relatively deep bench for knowledge and interactivity within our agencies through Cupertino. So thanks for that update. Let's go on to Councilmember Willing.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So on the 21st, I met with the Silicon Valley Clean Energy about the REACH codes for this coming year, REACH codes 2.0. Climate change, it's something we just can't avoid anymore. And so we did the REACH codes 1.0, which dealt with new construction and making them electrified rather than using gas sources. Well, 2.0 is now hopefully going to be offering advantages for existing dwellings. So the reason to just bring it up here is let people know that, you know, we all need to be looking at ways that we can reduce our carbon footprint because of the concerns that we've got. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
Hi. On the 21st of January, we had the Legislative Review Committee. The governor expects another big surplus for this year, about close to $50 billion. And there will be $20 billion in discretionary fund. And then we discussed maybe in the next legislative meeting, we would like to understand the League of Cities process to decide whether they support the ACA 7 initiative, the process. And then also we decided to track bills, not only from the League of Cities and the Planners Association, but also League of Women Voters, Sierra Club, and the California INVIS, so that we have more abreast of what's going on. And then on the 27th, I joined the first library JPA meeting. They accepted a 5-year fiscal forecast plan and a 3-year technology plan. And then they also have a 10-year CIP plan with funding allocated for this forthcoming project. I thought they are very good at making these multi-year plans. And the library this month, I think it's January, it's coming back with full service finally. In the past 2 years, the library staff has been helping with the pandemic effort. And the librarian has lost 20% of her staff because they were transferred to help with other county areas. So finally, we are back. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I was also in attendance for the LRC with the Vice Mayor, and she gave an excellent update for that committee. And on the 24th and the 25th of January, I was on the Audit Committee along with Mayor Paul. Some of the things we went over included the roles of the committee and how we need to be accepting the monthly treasurer's report, which the City Council should also be getting a copy of. So that should be forthcoming within our next meeting or two. We went over the quarterly treasurer's report, and the ACFR is underway but not yet completed. So we'll be receiving that within probably a month or two. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Chow, did you want to follow up on something that Councilmember Moore said very briefly?
Sorry, 2 items I forgot to mention we talked about in the Legislative Review Committee. One is we will schedule a visit with legislators in late February, things we were not able to do last year. And in terms of redistricting that many people probably want to know, our Senate district is now merged into Judge Becker's district, and our Assembly district is a new one. That's with Sunnyvale and the Santa Clara.
Okay, thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow, for that brief follow-up. I will say that I'm on the board of the Valley Transportation Authority until the end of next year, or this year, I should say, when I term out of office. I'm also vice chair of one of their committees. They call it SSTPO for short. That's Safety, Security, and Transit Planning and Operations. We met. Had a good set of discussions there. That I think some of it is going to be referred to the board meeting for VTA that occurs next Thursday. So if you're interested, there's a replete amount of information available on the VTA website over that discussion. And then with regard to the Audit Committee, yes, I'll just reiterate that I am now part of the Audit Committee for Cupertino. We have 2 representatives from our City Council. This year's Councilmember Moore and myself. And happy to take the years of experience that I have on council in my last 10 or 11 months here and hopefully close the loop on some of these, financially related items. And I did have one other item. Oh yes, the West Valley Mayors and Managers meeting. So West Valley mayors, comprised of the mayors of the 5 West Valley cities, of Campbell, Montessorino, Saratoga, us, as well as Los Gatos. They meet on a monthly basis. And so this last meeting, they primarily talked about the housing element. In terms of coordinating the meetings, the chair of that meeting rotates throughout the cities. So this year, the chair is Tina Walia of Saratoga. And Saratoga is talking about the housing element in full fervor, as I'm sure many, if not all, of our cities are doing. And so that comprised the majority of the discussion with regard to WVMM meeting. I will say very briefly, and I want to thank the community. I want to thank my fellow council members for bearing with on this year's State of the City. I know that when I was first mayor in 2018, I moved the State of the City back. It had gotten pushed back to fairly far into the spring, back to the first Wednesday in January. Initially, we were planning on having that again, this past Saturday. And as these types of things go, in planning, you have to at minimal plan about 2.5 to 3 weeks in advance. And so we started doing that in order to have tabling from various agencies and have an outdoor speech. But unfortunately, what ended up happening was that that was precisely the time that Omicron hit. And so, we really had to kind of take a bit of a turn. But we did have an outdoor presentation of that speech on Saturday. Production and, wrapping it up has been completed. I expect it to be released to the public later this week. And I thank my fellow council members for bearing with us there, because in order to have it kind of minimized in terms of not having very large crowds, we weren't able to notice it as a public meeting. And so we're releasing it formally, sometime this week. And so, thank you for my fellow council members for, being there at a very unusual and strange time in our history and in everyone's history, and making that flexible accommodation for this. So looking forward to rolling that out. And without any further delay on this, let's go on to consent calendar. Consent calendar this evening is items number 6 through 10. I do see a member of our city council with a hand raised. Councilmember Moore, did you want to make a motion or pull an item on consent?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I'd like to pull items 8 and 9 to hear those because they were items that I had pulled previously, and I would like to hear comments on the staff report. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So items 8 and 9 are pulled. Councilmember Willie, did you want to pull any item or at this point make a motion?
I think we slid past the city manager update. And
I apologize for that.
Usually has pretty good information for it.
That's, you're absolutely right. And I apologize for overlooking that. So let us go ahead and take that in order. I'll go ahead and make note of Councilmember Moore's request to pull 8 and 9, so we won't revisit that. Let's go back to item number 5. Mr. City Manager, Jim Troop, welcome again. And, I again really apologize for overlooking your city manager update for item number 5. Please take it.
Thank you, Mayor. Not a problem at all. My first one is just a personal note to say tomorrow will be my 1-month anniversary. That was probably the fastest month I've had in a very long time. So guys are keeping me busy. The other update I had was just going back for our normal COVID updates. So as of yesterday, the 31st at 6 p.m., on January 31st, 2022, the County of Santa Clara distributed free at-home antigen tests to all patients who signed up and received an appointment for PCR testing at the Cupertino Senior Center. So that was good. Some local data, and it's encouraging, is a 7-day rolling average has dropped from just over 6,500 cases 2 weeks ago to now we're down to approximately 3,100 cases as of today. So it's a little more than half of a drop. So we're hoping that's an encouraging trend, and we keep seeing that drop down to down to the 300s like it was at one point. Hospitalizations have also begun to decline in Santa Clara County. ICU beds, which are critical, they do remain very stable. We remain right around 84% of the county's total population has been fully vaccinated. Now that meets one of the metrics to remove the countywide face mandate. However, one of the other metrics is we're still in the red tier. So we have one piece, but we need the other piece, and we're working towards that. Cupertino, there are approximately 350 new cases reported this week. However, Cupertino does continue, that's something to really stand up and say something. We have the lowest case rate in all the county, so that's really good. Lastly, testing. County of Santa Clara will continue the COVID-19 PCR testing at the Cupertino Senior Center. Testing on the 31st yesterday resulted in 504 tests administered. This was the first decline since November, so we didn't have quite as many come out, but that's still quite a few for one day. We had 15 Citizen Corps volunteer staffing and supplemented the clinical services. Testing will return there again on Monday, February 7th and 21st of 2022 between 9:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Appointments can be scheduled. So if you go to www.sccfreetest.org, you can sign up there. Testing continues to remain available at countywide locations, including the Walgreens on Bollinger and El Camino Health on Valco Parkway. Otherwise, appointments can be gone. If you go again to the www.sccfreetest.org, you can get all the remaining sites in the county. And that was what I had for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. And I see Councilmember Moore has a hand raised. Councilmember Moore, did you want to make a comment on the city manager's report?
I just have a question. I noticed there were about, regarding the Valco project, the Valco SB 35 project, there were about 9 emails to Santa Clara County Department of Environmental Health. And I was wondering if the city manager could make a comment on those and let the public know, perhaps provide some assurances. I think that might help. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to actually first ask our city attorney, Chris, do you want to have any input on that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Jim. Thanks. So, as I think most people here are aware, the Valco site is being in the environmental investigation and remediation is being supervised by the Santa Clara County Department of Environmental Health under that department's site cleanup oversight program. What Councilmember Moore is referring to is a number of questions and comments from members of the public that were directed to DEH about the pace of the environmental investigation at the site, and all this information is available on the State Water Board's GeoTracker website for members of the public that are interested. And the staff at DEH posted both the comments and their responses. And their responses, I think, provided very useful information about the process for oversight that DEH uses and the steps in that process, and why the timeline is what it is, and it's very much in line with what an ordinary process would be for this kind of site. And so I believe that addresses your question, Councilmember Moore, but happy to discuss more.
Okay, well, thank you very much, City Attorney. And I think that's a fair question, given the fact that this is a ministerial process, and we're asking for essentially an update as an extension of the city manager's update. So let's go. I do see a member of the public with a hand raised. Let me ask the member of the public, did you want to speak on one of these items, or on the next item for consent calendar? Welcome, Jean Bedore. Just a quick check-in as to
I wish to speak on agenda item 9.
Item 9. Okay, let me. Oh, got it. So that's one of the consent. Okay, so we'll get back to you, Jean, when we get to item 9. Thanks very much. And so let's go ahead and entertain a motion for items, I believe 6, 7, and 10 on the consent calendar at this point, because items 8 and 9 were pulled. Would anyone like to bring forth that motion? If not, I'll go ahead and so move. Can I have a second? Councilmember Willie. Just go ahead and vocalize that by unmuting your microphone, Councilmember Willie.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'll second.
Okay, great. I don't see further hands raised. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote on items 6, 7, and 10 of consent calendar as agendized and recommended?
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Let's go to item number 8. That's the consideration of accounts payable for the period ending December 20th, 2021. And Councilmember Moore, you pulled the item, and you also initially pulled the item in our prior meeting. Would you like to refresh the public recollection as to the purpose of the polling and the follow-up that had been requested on this?
Okay, sure. Sure, Mayor Paul. So item 8 was regarding the Chamber of Commerce accounts payable of $8,000. And I was wondering if there was a contract associated with it, what the funds are for. And because it was said first installment, I had no way of knowing if that was the first of 1,000 or the first of 4 or anything. There's like no information. So I was looking for some assistance and background.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. And so let's bring this back to staff, and we'll go by, well, let me go through our city manager. City Manager Troop, would you like to respond to that or move this to any other member of staff?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it will be Katie Nomura.
Welcome, Katie.
Hi, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Good evening, Katie Nomura, Deputy City Manager. That's a great question. So it is the first of 2 installments. There is not a contract there. It's kind of a misnomer that they label it that way. However, we are pursuing a written scope of work so that we can memorialize what do we get for this kind of partnership between the city and the chamber. So that we're actively working on that since economic development has come into the city manager's office.
Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I'm also wondering through the mayor, is there an economic benefit for the use, which we've had historically, of the community hall and employee time making presentations at the chamber LAC events? And if there is, could that be included or considered when you work on your agreement?
Back to Katie.
Sure. Yes, we will take that into consideration when we try to work out the benefits the city gets from this agreement.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further hands raised at this time, I'll accept a motion. Vice Mayor Chow.
Sorry, so what is these 2 installments for?
So this is for our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. Granted, there is no written contract. However, like I mentioned, we are working actively to get a written agreement and scope of work.
Yeah, but partnership to do what?
In the past, I think it included their directory and other efforts that the chamber has done for us. Again, this is something that's newly come into the city manager's office and under my oversight, and so we are looking into it.
So this, so the city has been paying for this partnership for around $16,000 every year in the past.
Correct.
For making a business directory?
I don't believe that's the only benefit. I think there is a lot more to it, but that's why we want to have these discussions to make sure it's all written down. This is a new relationship that I'm not familiar with deeply, so that's why we're pursuing it at this time.
Is this a new or existing that you said that we have been paying for this partnership?
Correct, but I don't have that historical knowledge.
So could we get information about also what they have accomplished with this partnership? I think it would be good to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, these are all things that we're trying to
maybe 5 or some years. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's go back to Councilmember Moore as hand raised.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Paul. I'm actually wondering if perhaps we should again not approve this because we have too many questions, and I'm kind of wanting to see 10 years. That's $160,000. I'd like to know where that investment into the chamber actually went. So I really appreciate Vice Mayor Chow's questions, and it's causing me to have even more apprehension about moving this item along. Thank you.
Okay, in the interest of moving the rest of the accounts payable, is there an appetite for a motion excluding this particular item as to this part of the accounts payable? And let me check the date ending. That should be the date ending January, strike that, date ending December 20th, 2021. And so I believe that, is that a 1 week period or a 2 week period? Someone should be able to answer that readily.
Yeah, that one I'm going to have to look. I'm trying to look through all the names. If Christina's on or Zach.
Well, Zach's on. Yeah. So Zach, did you want to answer that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. These are 1 week reports, and as had been done administratively, I believe in a previous council meeting, at, of course, City Council's discretion, you would be able to accept the accounts payable report for the period ending December 20th, with the exception of check number 729290 dated December 17th, 2021, made payable to the Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $8,000.
Would anyone like to so move? Councilmember Moore, you have a hand raised. You're shaking your head. I take it that's a no.
Well, I'd like to explain why. I feel like we are more likely to see this item come back with some answers if we don't parse out that one particular item. I could be wrong, but that is my concern.
Okay, fair enough. Would anyone else like to speak to that? If not, we'll go ahead and table this item until it comes back with follow-ups. Okay, let's go ahead on to item number 9. This is the consideration of accounts payable for the period ending January 3rd, 2022. Councilmember Moore, same with item number 8 as with item number 9. You initially pulled this and had a question and follow-ups. Would you like to remind the public as to that question and follow-ups?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So at issue here, we have a very high water bill. At this time, it was about $53,000 to my recollection. And my concern was because we have some kind of mandates to reduce our water consumption, that the city is not allowed to be watering during times of measurable precipitation or within 48 hours afterwards. So my question was whether or not I was looking at a reduction in that bill that would be reflective of the city having retrofitted their rainwater detection. I looked at the staff report, which has been provided here. My question is already, I'm seeing how many of these units were installed, but I do not know out of how many in totality that need to be done. So I have no sense of how our progress is going towards meeting this requirement without knowing how many they've got to go. Okay, so I would like to hear the staff report on it. Thank you.
Okay, would any member of staff be able to speak to that? I see our Assistant Director of Public Works, or I think maybe the Acting Director at this point, Jimmy Tan. Jimmy, did you want to speak to either the staff report or Councilmember Moore's specific questions regarding it?
Sure. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. In regards to the irrigation controller, there are a total of 45 controllers that have been replaced within the trees and right-of-way divisions. And within the grounds division, that irrigates the school grounds and turf. The irrigation controllers are still just starting to be implemented. So there is a total need for 21 irrigation controllers to irrigate city parks, as well as 9 controllers to irrigate the school sites as well. So those are still pending to be installed, and staff is looking into installing those locations, within this fiscal year and next.
Okay, so Councilmember Moore, did you have any follow-up on that? I see Councilmember Willie with a hand raised, but before we get to further follow-ups, beyond Councilmember Moore's quick follow-up to her question, I would like to go to our member of the public that has a hand raised. But Councilmember Moore, since you initially had the comment and question, did you have a brief follow-up to Acting Director Tan's brief presentation?
Yes, yes, for Acting Director Tan, I was wondering, it was 48 out of how many? Did you have a total there?
So there are 2 different divisions, that are installing these irrigation controllers. So within the trees and right-of-way divisions, there are a total of 45 irrigation controllers that's been already installed. Within the grounds division, there will be a need for a total of 30 controllers.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
So I think for Councilmember Moore, so the first set, correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, but the first set have been completed. It's the second piece that we're working on them right now. We know how many there are. It's that 30, and we're in the process of finishing that, but the others have been completed.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Let's go to a member of the public. And as with any item, there are 3 minutes to speak on the item. And if you have any comments, please raise your hand by the time the first speaker is done. That speaker is Jean Bedord with a hand raised. Welcome back, Jean.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and council members. I have a question on a different item. I'm requesting additional explanation for item number 33273. An invoice paid to Elshire and Winder LLP for $15,049.62. My understanding is that this is payment for the services of attorney Sunny Sultani, who was present at the closed session on January 27th regarding potential litigation involving Balco. Now, I've reviewed the accounts payable records for this firm. The city of Cupertino has paid invoices totaling approximately $400,000 to this firm. My first question is whether this litigation expense is included in the nearly $2 million budget for the city attorney. If it's not included in the city attorney budget, where's the $400,000 budgeted? Where's the line item for litigation in our city budget? I don't remember seeing this rather substantial item in the approved budget for this fiscal year or even the last. Please provide answers and, more importantly, provide transparency for expenditures of taxpayer dollars. There is a cost to litigation, and residents are entitled to know how this city council is spending their hard-earned money. Thank you for this information.
All right, thank you, Jean. And let's bring this back to our staff. I don't know whether it's appropriate to comment on, particular speculations. I think is the best way to describe the characterization of the last public comment. But let me refer this to the city attorney. I'm not sure where the accuracy of the information is, but did you want to speak to some of the questions or allegations raised by the commenter?
I do think that the costs are transparent. They're included in the accounts payable for the city, which is obviously a public document that the council and all members of the public have access to. There are certain details in there that are, of course, attorney-client privileged, but I do think it's important that the overall expenditure of the city on legal fees is transparent and accounted for. Most of these invoices, I believe all the invoices with one exception, have been paid from community development department budget for this particular firm. That's where they've been paid, I think, for various historical reasons.
Okay, and as to any of the legal characterizations, is that something that you're in a position to either speak to the accuracy of, or to speak to the ability to, jump to conclusions based upon, what was provided?
So I would be reluctant to get into a discussion of confidential attorney-client communications in a public setting, but Ms. Bedard is correct that Elshire and Winder has primarily advised the city regarding Balco. Again, we can't get into the details of those in a public setting. I think one consequence of the council's decision to reinitiate an in-house city attorney is that there's more of the work related to many projects, including that, is being done in-house by your city attorney team. And I think you have seen a reduction in outside counsel fees based on that decision, and I think you'll continue to realize savings from that decision, and with respect to various outside counsel.
Understood. And overall, from your observations, understanding of the city attorney office's budget, have those costs escalated over the course of the last several years, or have they held steady? Have they in fact diminished? Where generally do we stand there?
I don't think there's been a clear trend over time. They've gone up and down in different years based on the vagaries of litigation. That's not uncommon with legal expenses. I believe again due in large part to the restructuring of the city attorney's office. I am anticipating that our office will that your expenditures on the city attorney's office will be lower this year than last year.
Thank you. All right, so let's go to Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Moore.
My comment, since the previous item, we haven't voted on that. I want to see when it comes back. Maybe it makes more sense to have the item to be about partnership with Chamber of Commerce. I think it's a good idea to understand that.
No, this is item 9. This is not item 8. So we can't reopen discussion on item 8 at this point. But if you have something pertinent to any of the accounts payable ending, I believe the period January 3rd. Let me check the agenda real quick. Please feel free to make those. Otherwise, I'll go on to Councilmember Moore.
Okay. But we haven't voted on item 8 yet, right?
No, there's no motion on the table with regard to item 9. Item 8, we moved on from. There was no motion on the table with regard to item 8. And so we're on item 9 right now. And yes, it is the week period ending January 3rd. Did you want to speak to that item?
When it's time, I'd like to make a motion regarding item 8.
Okay, we're not on item 8 right now. We're on item 9. So let me go on to Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, did you want to speak to item 9?
Yes. Okay. And I do think that the vice mayor's issue might be a great future agenda item. So I'm looking at the 15,000 Alshire Winder LLP, and I see that there is 8,900 approximately for Valco legal review, and that was in December, and then some other legal services rendered. And I guess probably the best place for me to bring this up is also future agenda items, but I would like to know how much the Valco SB 35 project is actually costing the city, because it is such a complicated project. And I'd like to know, I think it's a valid question from the public, how much time have we ended up having these legal reviews take, and how much money has been spent on it, and I think that it's something that the city should let the public know, and other cities know as well, that having a ministerial project when it's massive, has all these moving parts in it, that you might be very surprised for what it ends up costing. So I'd like to hear more about it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
So yeah, this will be regarding this item. So the city did post a lot of communications regarding Valco SB 35. And some, as you can see, that there are unforeseen or unknown environmental issues that the city have to hire legal consultant to clarify the issue, to make sure that we are protecting the safety and health of our citizens. And then there were letters of challenging the mitigation fees, and that's posted on the website too. And if the city doesn't defend ourselves, they might be asking for hundreds of millions of dollars of reduction of fees they owe the city. And if we don't defend the city, we are not protecting our residents' best interest. So but a lot of these are ongoing discussions that we cannot disclose the details to the public. But what we can disclose, we have posted on the website.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Yeah, so let me go to council and ask whether there is a motion on the table with regard to item 9. That's adopting a resolution by default relating to the accounts payable ending January 3rd, or is there follow-up to request that we come back on this item? Councilmember Moore.
I think that the Valco fees, attorney fees, could be better served as a future agenda item. So I so moved for this item.
I'm sorry, what is your motion? Your motion is to do what?
We want to approve the resolution and as you stated, for this particular accounts payable.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that. And I agree. I agree that makes a lot of sense. And I think that what I will say is that collectively among our council and our city staff, I would be shocked if anybody could do it in a more streamlined and efficient, effective way. And that goes by cost effectiveness as well as overall efficacy. So, I would welcome the open discussion because, frankly, I think a lot of the procedure and the aspersions and the maneuverings have been, a bit ill-advised, and I just think rather gratuitous. So, I would very much welcome the light of day to be placed upon a lot of the process here. And I think it would actually benefit the public quite a bit. So, okay, with that, I don't see any hands raised for further discussion. So let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
What's the motion? What's the motion?
The motion is to adopt the resolution, and that's number 22-016, accepting the accounts payable for the period ending January 3rd, 2022.
So we are not separating out those items.
No, we're not separating out the item. I think the original questions have been answered to the satisfaction of the council member following up, and there does seem to be an appetite to have a separate follow-up to the issues insinuated by the member of the public making comment. So
That's only for item 9, right? How about item 8? So the motion includes both?
I don't have item 8 open right now, Vice Mayor. And so let me go ahead and continue with this motion.
Okay.
And so I'll go ahead and call for a vote on item 9 at this time. So Madam City Clerk, could you conduct a roll call vote on the motion on the table for item 9?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wei?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
I don't think I need a motion to reconsider item 8 because we actually moved on from it. So I will, and Mr. City Attorney, please feel free to correct me if that is procedurally incorrect. But I'll go back to item number 8 right now. Vice Mayor Chow, you stated that you wanted to bring forward a motion at this time with regard to item 8. And City Attorney Jensen, did you have a follow-on to my procedural request? Do I need a motion to go back to item 8? Or would you feel more comfortable?
Well, so no, I don't think you need a motion because there was no vote taken. I don't think there's a need for a motion to reconsider. What I was going to suggest is I understand that Vice Mayor Chow is interested in a broader discussion apart from approval of accounts payable. I'm not sure that would be right for a motion because it's not agendized, but consistent with Councilmember Moore's comment earlier, that's certainly an appropriate topic for future agenda items, which we will be considering at the end of this meeting. And so if I am presuming incorrectly about Vice Mayor Chow's intent, I do apologize.
Okay, Vice Mayor,
So-
given the advice of council, did you want to reserve your request to, I believe it's future agenda items at the end of our meeting at this time?
I think Council Member Moore's initial concern was that she wants the item to get visibility. So I thought if we separate the approval of the check for chamber from the rest of the item today in our approval, and then the check would come back with agenda item on the partnership with chamber, that probably will serve the purpose Councilmember Moore have in mind. And also, I think my intent is, I think it serves the city better if we have a positive relationship with the chamber. I understand that there are some negative feelings because of one project in the past, but then I hope this could come back with a discussion and not as under accounts payable. So if Council Member Moore think it's a good idea to separate the check out from the rest, then the motion might be approve the rest of the accounts payable except the chamber check. Thank you.
Yeah, and Vice Mayor, I do want to say that we did have this discussion under item 8 as to whether to, separate it out. And Councilmember Moore did say that she did not believe it was advisable to do so because she wanted to follow up. So, I don't see anyone's hand raised at this point. And I don't hear a motion from you. I'm not sure if a motion, along those lines would be seconded. Given the city attorney's advice that we visit this in future agenda items and what appears to be a lack of action from council to move forward with your suggestion, I would suggest that we move on to the second reading of ordinances at this time. Vice Mayor, your hand again.
I have a question. So if we leave it as this item would come back as accounts payable. It still doesn't say Chamber of Commerce, and we won't actually be able to have that discussion about partnership with Chamber of Commerce next meeting. Then what do we do with this check? Or are we going to have the discussion on the partnership first, and then we'll have the item on the accounts payable?
Let's deal with that.
On the process.
Yeah, let's deal with that in future agenda items, Vice Mayor Chow. And so, I think it's a fair question, fair point, but the appropriate time to raise it, let's just go ahead and put that at the end of the meeting so that we can, dispose of this so that it's not considered, a discussion beyond the accounts payable, aspect of it. So, and I will point out that there are some follow-ups with regard to informational items. We can get this figured out in terms of what makes sense to bring back first and then revisiting the accounts payable. Okay, so we're down to second reading of ordinances. Item number 11 is the consideration of a second reading and enactment of an ordinance approving the rezoning of 2 parcels. These deal with the Canyon Crossing development. And so let us go ahead. This is the second reading of that ordinance. I don't see hands raised. And so, Madam City Clerk, well, let me go to the members of the public. This should be, fairly self-explanatory as agendized. It is the second reading. I don't see any members of the public with their hands raised. And so I'll go back to the council. Vice Mayor Chow, did you have a question or a comment with regard to this item number 11?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, well, let's conduct that second reading first. And so I'll ask our city clerk to conduct that second reading, please.
This is the second reading and enactment of ordinance number 22-2236, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino approving the rezoning of two parcels from planned development with general commercial uses, PCG, to planned development with general commercial and residential uses, PCG Res.
Okay, thank you, Madam City Clerk. Vice Mayor Chow, would you like to bring forward a motion?
Yeah, I move that the city approve the second reading of ordinance number 22-2236 as the city clerk's reading thereof.
Okay, and is there a second for Vice Mayor Chow's motion? Councilmember Willie?
Yes, I second.
Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote on the motion on the table?
Mr. Mayor, may I request, I didn't detect also a motion to enact.
I'll take that motion. I'll take that motion afterwards. We'll just do it stepwise.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Would anyone like to move to enact ordinance number 22-2236? Vice Mayor Chow, your hand is raised.
Oh, okay, so moved.
And Councilmember Willie, your hand is raised again. Would you like to second?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks very much. We're on to item number 12. This is similar to item number 11, but with a different development. It is the Beta Brothers site, and it's also the second reading and enactment. I'll go ahead and ask if any members of the public have any comments with regard to item number 12. I don't see any hands raised. And so let us bring it back to council. I don't see any hands raised from council either. And so, Councilmember Woolley, were you wanting to bring forward a motion after the city clerk reads the second?
I was going to just add a comment. I mean, a comment that both the previous item and this one, I think it clearly demonstrates that this community is definitely in favor of building the much needed housing. And I hope those that are beyond our borders realize that we are here doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Woolley. Madam City Clerk, could you please conduct the second reading of ordinance number 22-2237?
This is the second reading and enactment of ordinance number 22-2237, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino approving the rezoning of three parcels from planned development zoning with general commercial uses, PCG, to planned development zoning with general commercial and residential uses, PCG Res.
Would anyone on council like to move the second reading and have the city clerk's reading conduct the second reading thereof of ordinance number 22-2237? Councilmember Way?
Yes, I move that ordinance number 22-2237 be read by title only, and that the city clerk's reading constitute the second reading thereof. I further move that ordinance number 22-2237 be enacted.
Okay, great. We'll do it in one motion. And Councilmember Woolley?
I'll second.
Sounds good. I don't see further hands raised for discussion. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, very good. Well, we're at 7:52, and if anyone would like a break, please feel free to so state. Councilmember Way, you have your hand raised. Did you want to break briefly before we went to onto our public hearings? Hands not raised anymore. Okay, you're good. Okay, so we're at public hearings right now. Item number 13 is the consideration of an amendment to the fiscal year 21 to 22 fee schedule. These are planning fees, and this is to add a miscellaneous ministerial permit fee pursuant to urgency ordinance number 21-2235 regarding the ministerial processing, I should say, of up to 2 unit projects pursuant to Senate Bill 9. And so would anyone on our city staff like to provide the staff report on item number 13? I see Pew Ghosh, you have your you have your camera on. Welcome.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you. I will be presenting this item. Let me just share my screen here. Just as background for this project, this particular item, I wanted to remind you, everybody, that the council adopted an interim ordinance to implement SB 9 requirements here in Cupertino on December 21st, 2021. As part of that interim ordinance, the council established a miscellaneous ministerial permit and the authority to adopt fees. The applicants wishing to use the SB 9 ministerial processes must apply for this particular permit and pay the fee associated with it. And this fee is intended to recover the city's reasonable costs for any time that is spent to review plans and or manage the project. In general, the process for review of these ministerial permits is similar to those of our two-story discretionary permits. It does require coordination with other city departments, noticing to neighbors, verifying whether the site notice is up, etc. All of that still remain. It also allows I won't call it a comment period, but still allows some time between the city making a decision and that site notice going up. So communication with neighbors and interested parties is also required. In terms of the amount of staff time that is estimated for review of such projects, we estimated approximately 13 hours of staff time would be required, which would include application intake, 2 iterations of review of plans, ongoing coordination with applicants and architects, communication with neighbors, finalizing approval documents, et cetera, et cetera. And for that, a fee of $3,926 is proposed. So this is also at the current city's staff hourly rate for the planning division. I guess with that, I conclude my presentation with staff's recommended action, which is to amend the adopted Schedule C for planning fees for the current fiscal year. And this fee schedule will go into effect 60 days from adoption of the resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Pew. Let's go on to our members of the public with their hands raised. We have Jennifer Griffin, and I'll repeat, by the time that Jennifer has her comments concluded, please have your hand raised if you'd like to speak on this item number 13. Welcome, Jennifer. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think that this fee is appropriate because no one had any way of knowing or foretelling what SB 9 and 10 would be doing to the city. They were just kind of like lumped on us with no warning. The public, the city councils had no way of protesting, asking questions. It's like the governor said, take it or lump it, dump these on us. Well, I think that this is appropriate because I, as a member of this state, I think SB 9 and 10 just sent this state into total Soviet control. I have lost all faith in my upper politicians in this state. I feel like we're going into some sort of a, like, you have no right to ask. We will just tell you what to do. So if we're talking about the hours that our poor city staff are having to deal with SB 9 and 10, let's go into the area of, yes, they don't want to notify the neighbors, but you can't build a house without telling the neighbors about it and splitting the lot. Let's get real here. The neighbors are going to have to hire surveyors. They're going to be going to the county. They're going to be going to the assessor. They will demand story polls. That is going to take up city staff time and the legal fees too. Whoever wrote these bogus bills were like in La La Land. They had no basis in reality, no planning, no background in real estate law. The neighbors are going to be asking questions, and the staff have to answer the questions. The Lalas that wrote SB 9 and 10 think that the state has no right to ask questions. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So the staff are going to be loaded with neighbors' questions. And I think let's roll it on to whoever is benefiting financially from SB 9 and SB 10, the ADUs, the lot split, the that whoever these units are going to be sold to, yeah, take it and lump it. You were the ones that dumped this on us. You guys pay for it. And I can tell you right now, if you want to charge $10,000, go ahead and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next and final speaker on this item number 13 is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you, City Council and staff. I would like to thank the staff for addressing this issue and looking into the potential cost of processing one of these requests. We have all these fees, but this one wasn't something that was on the list before. And so I support it, and I thank the staff for addressing the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And yeah, thank you for the brevity of both of your remarks thus far this evening. So let's go ahead and bring this back to council. And we have a hand raised from Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul, and thank you, Pew, for the report. I'm looking at page PDF 673, Schedule C, Planning, part of Resolution 21-034, so 673 of 756 in the agenda packet. And we have the ministerial residential permit, miscellaneous ministerial permit cost of $3,926. And what I'd like to clarify is that if someone is adding a second story in their SB 9 project, would they just pay this $3,926? Are they allowed to essentially by right get a second story without with the design review simply being whether or not they're consistent with the objective standards which we recently adopted? Is that right? Because I'm wondering if maybe we should have had a two-part permit, one for if you're going to a second story, because we have a two-story permit with design review of $5,373. And then I'm almost wondering if maybe we should have the single story if you're just maintaining that, and a two-story separate review.
So if I may, with regard to the permit itself, the noticing requirements aren't different. So if whether you build a one-story house or a two-story house, with this permit, we still have to do the noticing. So the amount of time that staff has to expend in terms of talking and coordinating with the neighbors and or the applicant, it'll be pretty similar in terms of the amount of time. And this is really an average. So on some applications, we expect that we'll probably spend more time. On others, we may spend a little less. But on average, we anticipate that we'll spend about the same amount of time.
Through the mayor, may I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So Pew, that means you consider that some of your applications are going to be for two stories and some are going to be for single story. That's how you derived this cost. And then I want to make sure if they are looking at a parcel map, splitting the lot, that seems like that's a separate issue.
Correct.
And okay, so that still gets the same parcel map fee.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. At this point, I don't see any further hands raised from council, and so I will go ahead and ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 22-023 as described in our agenda for this evening. And I see Councilmember Moore with a hand raised.
So moved.
Is there a second for this motion? Vice Mayor Chow?
Second.
Okay.
But I do have a question.
Yes, please. We're open for further discussion, but please, we'll entertain your question at this time.
I'm curious how many applications we have received.
We, at this point, I want to say we've received at least 20 inquiries, if not more. We don't have an application in just yet at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. So no further hands being raised. We will conduct a roll call vote. Again, the motion is to adopt resolution number 22-023, amending the adopted fiscal year 21-22 fee schedule C, planning fees to add a miscellaneous ministerial permit fee pursuant to urgency ordinance number 21-2235 regarding the ministerial processing of up to 2-unit projects pursuant to Senate Bill 9. Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
I
Mayor Paul.
Aye. And just to make a note of it, Madam City Clerk, you blipped out a little bit when you were calling Councilmember Chow's name, so that's probably why the pause.
Oh, okay. So Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Okay. Mayor Paul.
Aye. Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thanks very much. We're on to item number 14. This is a consideration of an extension of interim ordinance. Let me get the number. The interim ordinance was 22-2238, related to SB 9 that provides for ministerial approval up to 2 units and/or lot split in a residential single-family zone. And I see, I think Pew, you still have your camera on. Did you have the task of providing the staff presentation on this as well? Great, and just unmute your microphone and we'll take it away.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, lucky me. So here to present the item on related to extending the urgency ordinance that the council adopted in December. It is, again, as background, SB 9 allows the ministerial approval of a duplex, whether it's attached or detached on an existing single family, on property that is zoned for single family uses, and also allows the subdivision of, or an urban lot split of an existing property that is zoned for single family uses. And also then build a duplex on each of those two new lots. As I mentioned already, the council adopted the interim ordinance on December 21st, 2021. This expires actually in a few days from now on February 4th. State law allows the council to extend the interim ordinance for 10 months and 15 days. It is necessary to allow the time to develop the regular ordinance that we wish to bring forward. It is expected that we will be presenting a regular ordinance in spring or early summer of 2022 to Planning Commission and City Council based on what we continue to hear with regard to our existing standards. An ordinance adopted to implement SB 9 is not considered a project under CEQA, and therefore it is categorically exempt. It needs 4/5 of the vote of the council in order for the council to extend this particular interim ordinance. And with that, the recommendation is for the council to adopt the proposed ordinance to extend the ordinance.
Thanks very much, Pew. Let's go on to our member of the public with a hand raised at this point. And so, Jennifer Griffin, you have your hand raised. I'll remind the other members of the public here that if you want to speak on this item number 14, please have your hand raised before Jennifer concludes speaking, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. Yes, thank you to our dear staff for trying to roll forward with the bizarre demands that are coming down from our state level. I feel like this state has gone through the rabbit hole down in, Alice in Wonderland, and we don't even know who's control or driving the state. The city has to do what the city has to do to protect itself, and I fully recommend that this emergency ordinance get extended. I have never in my life run into such irrational, stupid laws that elected officials at our state level would expect that the public would have no comment on. I am absolutely appalled that our state level representatives would foist something like this on us during COVID without any thought. Okay, yes, you're going to have neighbors complaining, upset, moving. A lot of us fought and spent a great deal of time to live where we live for whatever reason. And it's nobody's business why people live where they live, or how they live, or how many generations their family's been there, or half a generation. But to have our government in California behave this way, signing these irrational laws into state law during COVID with no thought for the mayhem that is going to ensue, the hours of consternation for neighbors and officials, is absolutely the stupidest form of government I have ever heard of. Right now, they are trying to do the same bills in Washington State as SB 9 and SB 10. Wake up, Washington State. Oregon is already embroiled in HB 2001, which is their SB 9 and 10. What the heck is going on? Is it Texas next, Arizona, Virginia, Florida, Oklahoma, Maine? Who are these people? What do they want? And they don't want anybody in this country to question them, because if you question them, you get shot down immediately. So yeah, we got a lot of problems in this country, but we don't need the problems from 9 and 10 to cause disruption in our homes and across our country and state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Peggy Griffin, followed by Lisa Warren. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. I would encourage you to extend this ordinance to give staff time to fine tune it. I have input for the fine tuning, but I don't think it's appropriate here. I think they need time to look at it and see what happens and how things develop. So I encourage you to give them that time and continue to keep this an orderly process. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And our next and final speaker on item number 14 is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I agree with both the previous speakers. I hope that you haven't changed your mind from when you first adopted this interim ordinance and knew this was coming, and the plan was at that time, according to all of you, I believe, to go ahead and do this extension and give staff time and yourselves time and the community time to tweak or not tweak what you've already got. So please do extend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's bring this back up to council with regard to item number 14. I'll entertain a motion as listed out in the agenda. Would anyone like to bring that? Councilmember Willie?
Yeah, I'd like to bring that. Should I read it, or is?
Let's refer it to the agenda at this point, the recommended action under item number 14. And so let's go ahead and take a second for that motion. Councilmember Way, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, I'll second it. Do we need to say that it's the only one and the one and only reading of ordinance?
It's captured within the recommended action on the agenda, but let's go ahead and ask Madam City Clerk to conduct that one and only reading of ordinance number 22-2238.
This is the one and only reading of ordinance number 22-2238, an interim ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cupertino, extending interim ordinance number 22-2235, adding or amending Cupertino Municipal Code Section 18.170, 19.08.030, 19.12.030, 19.12.110, 19.28.040, 19.28.050, 19.28.110, 19.28.150, 19.28.170, 19.40.050, 19.40.060, 19.40.090, and 19.112.060 to adopt standards for ministerial approval of duplexes and lot splits in single-family residence districts.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Madam City Clerk, and I'll go ahead and reiterate under the recommended action. This is a two-parter. The second part was just read by the City Clerk for the one and only reading of the ordinance, and the first part was that the proposed action is exempt from CEQA. Councilmember Moore, I take it that that was your comment with your hand raised. Madam City Clerk, if you could please conduct a roll call vote for the motion that is on the table.
Yes, Mayor, may I just add also that the city clerk's reading conducts the one and only reading thereof and to enact ordinance number 22-2238.
Yes, of course. Those are wise additions to the motion. So let me go back to the movement. I believe that was either Councilmember Willie or Way. And so someone clarify, please, who moved? Was it, okay, Councilmember Willie. So do you accept those clarifications as articulated by the city clerk?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and
I'll second that.
Councilmember White, thank you very much. We have a hand raised from Vice Mayor Chow. Did you want to comment on this motion?
Yes. So this will come back as a permanent ordinance, and before that we will do outreach, right? So what is a timeline for that?
Good question. Staff, did you want to speak to Vice Mayor Chow's question with regard to the outreach and the projected timeline within this 10-month period?
Right. So we are anticipating, as we kind of continue to get requests from applicants and people that wish to subdivide, we are kind of looking to see how the proposed regulations are, working in essence. And yes, we will be reaching out to the public for their input. I mean, this is the draft ordinance, so to speak, for the regular ordinance. So if anybody, including Ms. Griffin, has any comments on the draft ordinance, we're happy to take that input in even now.
I guess what I mean is, will you conduct a survey, a community meeting, and go to the planning commission about when, and about when we would expect that to come back to the council?
So we are not anticipating conducting a survey necessarily, Vice Mayor Chow, but we do intend to go to like I said, this is the base of the ordinance with regard to the regulations as they stand right now. But with that said, we do intend to accept any input from the community, and I understand, or it is my understanding based on our schedules and all the work schedule that we have, that we'll probably be going to Planning Commission sometime in April or May, and then bring it back to council shortly after that.
So people who want to comment should email whom?
Planning@cupertino.org.
Cupertino.
Yes, that's the best way to reach us.
So I understand that for this one interim ordinance, I was being a bit more conservative. For example, we didn't allow basement, which I would be willing to consider for the permanent, and then possible condo conversion. And so those, I hope that people will provide comment on those kind of additional things we should allow. And also, I think lot split and duplex are actually a gentle way for Cupertino to grow. So I do wish that we do consider discretionary approval process for this kind of thing. And then if people can provide comments on what to allow, for example, to allow this restricted affordable housing, maybe without the primary residence requirement, and whether we should or should not allow this kind of thing for a discretionary process, that would be good to know. Thank you.
Those are certainly items that we could look at, but what you're suggesting, it goes a little bit beyond the SB9 regulations, but certainly things that could be considered for the housing element.
Okay, thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow, as well as Pugh. So I'll go ahead and ask our city clerk to conduct the roll call vote on this motion. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Councilmember Way.
Aye.
Councilmember Willie.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. We're on to ordinances and action items. I will take a 5-minute break for us at this point. It's 8:17. Let's reconvene at 8:23. Right, we'll see you in a few. Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and start back up again on our agenda. This is under ordinances and action items. We are now on item number 15. The subject is a consideration of a notice of intent to vacate a public pedestrian walkway easement through tract 9405, that is Campo de Lozano. And I do see that Chad Mosley from our Public Works Department has his camera on. Chad, are you presenting this item on behalf of our staff?
Yes, Mayor, I am. Give me 1 second to share my screen.
Great.
Good. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Again, Chad Mosley, Assistant Director of Public Works. This item presented for council consideration is the notice of the city's intent to vacate a public pedestrian walkway easement. It should be noted that adopting the resolution tonight to notice the public of the city's intent to vacate does not complete the vacation process. If council approves the resolution today, a resolution to officially vacate the easement will be presented to you on March 1st City Council meeting. You are also being provided the opportunity to consider reducing the fees for this application tonight. The public walkway easement in question is situated within the Campo de Lozano subdivision near 20138 Rodriguez Avenue. The subdivision is situated immediately north of the Regnart Creek Trail and between Blaney Avenue and Torrey Avenue. The Cupertino Civic Center is located at the lower left corner of the image presented here. The walkway runs roughly north-south through the subdivision and connects Rodriguez Avenue on the north to Regnart Creek Trail on the south. The granting of the easement and installation of the walkway was a condition of approval for the development when it was constructed in 2002. The portion of Regnart Creek Trail adjacent to the property was constructed with the development and has been open to the public for use since that time. The trail continued eastward from the development and connected with the sidewalk on Palma Lane located on the right side of this image. The city is currently improving the Regnart Creek Trail. The project extends the trail system to the west of the subdivision where it connects to the Civic Center property and Rodriguez Avenue, approximately 550 feet west of the subdivision. The project also expands the trail towards the east to Blaney Avenue and onward to East Estates Drive, where it connects to an existing trail segment that continues to Creekside Park. The trail is also being improved along the eastern and southern boundaries of the Civic Center property. The residents of the Campo de Lozano subdivision have requested that the city vacate the existing walkway easement through their development so that the walkway can be restricted from public access to address resident concerns over safety and security. Removing this public access walkway reduces connectivity for the public, but the expansion of the Regnart Creek Trail provides for alternative points of connection with better access opportunities for the residents of Cupertino, including access to the Civic Center and on-street parking near the trailhead on Rodriguez Avenue. The residents have also requested that the city waive the application fee requirements as they believe the vacation should have been included as part of the Regnart Creek Trail project approval. The application fee for this type of easement vacation is $4,368. As previously stated, you are being provided 2 items for consideration this evening. The first being the recommendation to notice the public of the intent to vacate the walkway easement. This action is being performed in accordance with the California Streets and Highways Code. The second item being the option of reducing the city collected application fees. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Chad. I will go ahead and turn this over to members of the public for any commentary prior to our questions from council. I see that Lisa Warren from the public has a hand raised. And so I'll remind everyone that you'll have to have your hand raised before Lisa concludes speaking, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So if I were one of you up there, I would be supporting this. I think it only makes sense for these residents. I know the area well. I've walked it hundreds of times. And in fact, on the map, there's also a way to walk through prior to that path between the 2 duet homes, 2 sets of duet homes. And we were always very careful to be quiet when we walked through there, respecting that you're very close to these people's homes. And with the hope that more people will be using this trail, I I would say I hope you support this vacancy of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. We do not have any further hands raised from members of the public, and so I'll bring this back to City Council. If there are any questions of staff for the presentation or other questions related to this item or any comments at this time, we'll entertain those prior to asking for a motion. Councilmember Moore, your hand is raised, followed by Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. My question's for Chad. And I was wondering if you would be able to pull the map back up. And you mentioned some other access points. I don't think they would all be are going to show up on the map that you have, but I was wondering if you could just mention where the other access points are.
Can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes.
The Ragnar Creek Trail runs east-west along the creek here. There will be access to Rodriguez Avenue at the bend in the creek here, and there will also be access points to the Civic Center property along this area. Additionally, as you proceed to the east, there will still be access points to De Palma Lane here, and then the trail continues along the edge of the creek and connects into Blaney Avenue. So there are points of connection both east and west along this stretch.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow.
Yeah, so could you put on the map again?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for the map. It's good to visualize it. So this easement is in the middle. So I'm just trying to understand currently what residents will be using this particular pedestrian easement. Likely people across the street cannot use it because there is no crosswalk here, right?
There currently the residents of the subdivision can use this. Anybody walking along Rodriguez could use it. Anybody who decided to walk, jaywalk, I guess, could potentially use it, but there is no formal crossing here. You are correct.
Mm-hmm. So with the Ragnar Trail finished, pedestrians will likely be able to access either from the entrance near the City Hall or at the Blaney Avenue. And this midpoint access, if it exists, actually, it might encourage jaywalking from the complex in the north. So maybe removing this easement would discourage jaywalking. So they would be using either Blaney entrance or the east and the west entrance of the trail, right?
I'm not sure that removing this would discourage any jaywalking. If somebody wants to access from Rodriguez, they may still decide to jaywalk anywhere along here. I don't know that it's going to discourage it at all, but yes, there is no formal crossing here as indicated.
I guess it won't significantly inconvenience existing residents for accessing the trail.
The loss of this shouldn't significantly inconvenience any pedestrians.
Okay. So I understand the vacation requires surveying of the property line and those things. Would the city be doing those, or would the HOA be doing that?
Typically, you provide a plat and legal for any kind of vacation document. In this case, because this easement's already well mapped with the subdivision for the subdivision map, the track map for the subdivision, I should say, it should be fairly easy to craft an exhibit for that and move this process forward without having to hire a surveyor.
So if we approve this item today, there is not much for the HOA to do?
That is correct.
Okay, that's good to know. And how much city staff time would be invested on this?
I don't know how much staff time has been invested already, but it's already been fairly considerable with the amount of outreach and coordination done. When this is all, and we're spending time here tonight as well. So when this is all said and done, I'm sure we will have exhausted at least what the fee schedule indicates.
Okay, thank you so much for all your work and coordination.
Great, thank you. Next, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I just have a quick question again for Chad. I'm looking at the satellite map, not satellite map, but showing Rodriguez Avenue, and so pedestrians can only cross the street at Torrey or all the way down at Blaney?
There are crosswalks at Torrey and Blaney. People can cross wherever, they decide to cross, whether it's legal or not. I see people do it all the time.
Okay, so but is it actually illegal for them to cross? Technically illegal for them to cross anywhere on the north side of Rodriguez within this entire strip? There's no crosswalk. It just seems like a really long stretch to have to not have a crosswalk. So I was. If one is that true? If somebody were to cross, say, at the bend there, that would be jaywalking and illegal. And then if that's the case, it seems like maybe we want to analyze if this is a problem.
I'll let Chris answer that.
Yeah, I can. So it is an infraction to cross anywhere other than a crosswalk or an intersection. I believe at least the driveway directly across from Lozano is a private driveway, and I will have to defer to Chad whether there are any public streets in that stretch, but there may not be.
And there are no public streets in this stretch.
Okay, I don't see any further hands raised at this time. I'm going to go ahead and move an item on this. So I'd like to move that we adopt resolution number 22-024 to notice the public of the intent to vacate the public pedestrian walkway easement through track 9405, and to set that public hearing for March 1st, 2022 at 6:45 p.m. Secondly, I would like to move that as part of this motion, that we waive the collected fees by the city of Cupertino that have been adopted by the fee schedule for this action. May I have a second for this motion? And I see Councilmember Moore raised.
I second it. I would like staff to evaluate whether or not we are creating a situation where people are going to unlawfully be crossing the street because we don't have adequate crosswalks available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. I'm going to take that as a separate request to staff. I'm not going to incorporate that into my motion. And so thank you for seconding it. May I have a roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, seeing no further hand raised on this item for this one?
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thanks very much. So we are on to our next item, oral communications. Madam City Clerk, I noticed that there was an email that came in at 7:00 p.m. I think I'm within my discretion, given the fact that this was so close to the beginning of our meeting. I don't know precisely whether this came in time for oral communications, although it probably would have been right around that time, frankly, because our first couple of items, I think, probably did take more than 15 minutes when I think about the Fine Arts Commission presentation for the Fine Arts Award winners. And so there is a request to have that read into the public record for oral communications. And so, Madam City Clerk, if you also have that email, you read that into the record, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Honorable Mayor Paul and City Council members, last week I watched the housing element study session during the Cupertino Planning Commission meeting. I do not live in Cupertino. I live across the border in West San Jose, but I am concerned about the housing element in Cupertino because it affects West San Jose. Santa Clara County has 23 active Superfund sites, the most of any county in America. It looks like there should be a 24th Superfund site in Cupertino at the old Valco Mall. It gets worse every month. Please address the issue of how future housing element sites will be pre-screened for toxic contamination so the city does not experience a repeat of the fiasco at Valco. The city should also do soil testing at the Westport site. Cupertino dodged a bullet by discovering the Valco contamination that the property owner tried to hide prior to construction beginning. Building on contaminated land would be as bad as what happened with the sinking Millennium Tower in San Francisco, costing hundreds of millions of dollars to remediate. I drove down Wolf Road this morning and witnessed the excavation taking place to remove contaminated soil. I wonder where all this toxic soil will be dumped. Cupertino is extremely fortunate that the Santa Clara County Department of Environmental Health has been diligently working to ensure that the site contamination at the Valco site is remediated. This is despite county officials coming under enormous pressure by lobbyists for the property owner to direct the Department of Environmental Health to not do their job in an honest, unbiased, and thorough manner. Please ensure that the city creates a housing element that meets our RENA using sites that are safe for housing. No housing, regardless of cost or income level of the occupants, should be at risk for toxic contamination. We do not want another Hinckley or Love Canal in our county. Sincerely, Richard Sandoval, West San Jose resident.
Okay, and Madam City Clerk, I was keeping track of time. You were within that 3 minutes, so thanks very much. We'll go on to our next item on the agenda. That is council and staff comments and future agenda items. I'll take the comments, a couple of minutes each, please, from Councilmember Willie, followed by Councilmember Moore. And I do see a hand raised from our city attorney. So I am also, I'm sorry, item 16, what am I thinking? I'm so sorry. I'm so very, very sorry. Item 16, okay, so we'll take the continued oral communications out of order. I duly apologize for that. Item number 16 is considering adopting the proposed 2022 legislative platform. And so do we have a member of staff that would like to introduce this item? I see that our Deputy City Manager, Katie Nomura, has a video on. And so Katie, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Katie Nomura, Deputy City Manager. And tonight we have with us Casey Elliott, Vice President of Towns and Public Affairs, who will be presenting on this item. Take it away, Casey.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council members. Casey Elliott from Towns and Public Affairs. I believe my colleague Carly Shelby has a brief presentation that will help us guide us through this item. By way of brief background, the legislative platform is a document, as you're aware, that was prepared annually and presented to the City Council. The document does guide and inform the official city positions on legislative issues in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. For the coming year. The legislative platform authorizes the Legislative Review Committee to take positions based on the items that are contained in the platform approved by Council. If bills fall outside of the items that are contained within the legislative platform, those will be considered referred to the full council for consideration. Also, the item legislative platform will be placed on the city's website through the LRC committee's website. If we could move on to the next slide on the specific items. The Legislative Review Committee reviewed the platform at their meeting in early December and has it for you for recommended adoption. The legislative platform builds on the legislative platform from the first year of the legislative session, and as such, we use that as our basis. And from there, there's been some modifications and some, which are the primary ones are described here within this presentation.
Sorry, this is the mayor. I don't know if I'm unique here, but I don't actually see anybody's screen sharing here. So what I see is Katie Nomura has started screen sharing and double click to enter full screen mode. So we're not actually, to my knowledge, seeing anybody's presentation here.
Yes, Mayor, it sounds like she is having some technical difficulties. Oh, is she back on? Her screen was frozen, is what she told me.
Okay, so perhaps, Katie, if you wanted to email the presentation, perhaps to the.
Right, if somebody can share their presentation.
Oh, hey, yeah, I think that, sorry, apologies, everyone. I believe that now I can share my screen. So let me go ahead. Can everyone see that?
Yes, you might want to go into full screen mode.
Yes. Here we go.
And okay, great. Maybe I don't know if it's possible to perhaps zoom in on that, but it's all right. We can see it. Thanks.
Sorry about that. The slide that's in front of you is the background slide, which essentially incorporates that which I just mentioned on the usage of the platform. Carly, if we can move to the next slide, please. The notable changes in this year's platform include amending language to support legislation that positively addresses housing shortages as well as the root causes of housing shortages. There's also been additional language to oppose additional state powers to overturn local planning decisions, which is compounding on the existing local decision-making authority language that's contained within the document. Just really wanted to be very precise on that particular item. There's also been language to oppose any modifications of sales tax distribution formulas that would negatively impact the cities. This item previously has been contained within the city's platform as a monitor position, but given some of the activity and some of the discussions of more specific proposals, the LRC felt that it was appropriate to move this to an opposed position in those instances where the formula or modifications of the distribution could have a negative financial impact on the city. Additionally, we put in language that would support policy and funding for workforce development within the city. Let's see. On the next slide, please, Carly.
Yes.
Other notable changes within the document include monitoring legislation both at the state and federal levels related to drone usage regulations. This would both be in recreational and in more governmental official capacities. Supporting policies and funding for electrification of residential homes within the sustainability portions of the platform. Also, language was included to support legislation and/or funding to provide free or reduced price access to public transit for low-income individuals. Monitoring organized retail theft and law enforcement response to public excuse me, I should probably break this up. Providing monitoring legislation related to retail theft, as well as law enforcement responses to public protest legislation. I think given the large number of occurrences we saw last year on organized retail thefts, there will be some additional legislation which may cover a variety of different ways. So this will provide the LRC an opportunity to gauge that legislation. And then lastly, supporting financial counseling for homeless individuals and support for those that are at risk of becoming homeless. And then finally, the recommended action would be for the council to adopt the proposed 2022 legislative platform. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions that there may be regarding the document. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll go on to our members of the public before we bring it back to council for follow-ups and questions, as well as any potential deliberation or motion. I'll remind our members of the public that you'll need to have your hand raised before the first member of the public is concluded speaking. You'll have 3 minutes each. Right now I have 3 hands raised, and they are from Lisa Warren, Peggy Griffin, and Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Lisa.
Sorry, I didn't lower my hand previously.
Okay, then our first public speaker on this item is Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, council and staff. I don't know how you say this, but our governor seems to have a surplus of funds, and yet none of this money seems to be going towards a pot for affordable housing. and I don't know if this is the appropriate place to put it, but to advocate that some of these surplus funds goes either into a redevelopment group or affordable housing that can be trickled down to local communities, I think should be added if you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peggy. And our next and final speaker on this item number 16 is Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and that's interesting, Peggy's comment. You know, we could bring redevelopment agencies back again. Jerry got rid of them a number of years ago, and then we've fallen into this, I don't know, SB 9, SB 10, Alice in Wonderland area. Anyway, the other thing is too, we have, because of the realignments of our assembly and Senate districts, we're winding up with completely new districts and possibly overlaps of other areas. And I think it's really important to remember that this may have ramifications down the road. If we've got new assembly and partial new, and I think it's a brand new Senate district for us, and then our assembly districts are winding up being parts of other areas, we're going to have sort of a mishmash of our elected politicians that are representing us in Sacramento. These are the realignments of the boundaries due to the census, et cetera. And I think it's really important. I mean, I didn't even realize that we had a new Senate district because of these boundary realignments. And I know people have been working very, very hard on it. But, you know, this is a fact of life. I mean, these become, I believe, as of next January, I think that's who we're sitting with. So we need to spread that to the public so they know what's going on, because we've already had musical chairs with a lot of politicians at the state level in terms of people retiring or moving because they don't live in the districts anymore. The public needs to know this, because I certainly didn't realize we had a new Senate district, and I'm not sure about the assembly. We need to discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we'll bring this back to council. Are there any questions with regard to this item of either staff or our outside consultant at this time? I don't see hands raised. I will go ahead and entertain a motion to accept what's proposed as our current terms of legislative platform for 2022. Councilmember Moore, would you like to so move?
Yes, so moved.
And would anyone like to second this? Vice Mayor Chow? Vice Mayor Chow,
I'll second, sorry.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. And so is there any request for discussion on this?
I have a comment.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Also answering the question from the community member. So right now, there is an item that we do support legislation to give to provide state funding for construction of affordable housing, including extremely low income, very low income, and moderate income housing that we already have. But I noticed that we don't have an item to support ownership housing, which I think our community probably would like to see. So maybe funding for down payment assistance, those kind of programs that help people to become homeowners. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. There is an opportunity for Measure A home loans for first-time buyers, and that could be something that maybe council could talk about in the future. One of the LRC meetings included the legislative platform from 2 other cities, and I'm so impressed with the the legislative platform that we have here and that it's been worked on over the past couple of years. It is really comprehensive. It's very thoughtful, and each year it just has little changes to it, which are really important. And so I hope that everyone's gotten a chance to take a look at it. And then if you were to look at some of our surrounding cities platforms, to compare, I think you'll be very impressed with the work that the council's been doing over the past couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. I'm going to go ahead and thank you, as well as Vice Mayor Chow, for your service in the LRC. And so I don't see any hands raised further at this point. So I will go ahead and ask our city clerk to conduct a roll call vote on this motion for item number 16.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Councilmember Way.
Aye.
Councilmember Willie.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We are on to the last item on our agenda, and that is future council items. Let me start with our staff. Jim, is there anything from staff that you would like to comment on prior to going on to the council for this?
Nothing I can, thank you, Mayor, sorry. Nothing I can think of right at the moment. There's just, we have so much going on out there in the city, but no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much, City Manager. And so let's go on to our City Council. I see a hand raised from Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, do you have any comments or future agenda items prior to our adjourning this meeting this evening? And I'll just give a reminder, this is brief, couple of minutes follow-up from items that you might have heard and follow up to a meeting or other comments at this time. But I just want to make this very clear. Let's not have any kind of deliberation or extended proposal of a discussion on any particular item, since we're not talking about agendized items here. So Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So first, I would like to hopefully staff, would they take a look at Rodriguez and the number of crosswalks and whether or not we're creating a situation where people are going to have an attractive nuisance getting to the trail and illegally crossing the street. Valco SB 35 legal fees, which was brought up earlier. I would like to see some reporting on how much this project is actually costing the city, that we cannot push off onto the developer essentially to pay for. And I think that was a good question from the member of the public. And lastly, and I think the Vice Mayor can clarify this item regarding the Chamber Council partnership. And that, of course, was brought up because of the $8,000 first installment, the $16,000, which we've been paying, and we don't know exactly what that money is for. So if the Vice Mayor would like to elaborate on what she would like to hear on that, and perhaps even on the SB 35 legal fee request, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. And we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, this, I think, is actually a question for the city manager. Did I hear in our one of our previous one-on-ones that Captain Urano was going to come and speak at a council meeting about crime in Cupertino?
That's right. That's the next council meeting.
Oh.
I think that was directed at Jim.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Vice Mayor Chow.
So regarding the partnership with Chamber, I would like to find out what's our current partnership. What do we have in terms of legislative action committee they have and other partnership. And also I would like to see what other cities are doing. For example, Santa Clara, their their visitor center is at the Chamber of Commerce. I think in many other cities too. So what that looks like, how other cities partner with their chamber, because a vibrant economic chamber is important for the city too. So I would like to know the current status, what we could do, and what we decide we want to do in the future. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Yeah, and so by way of just reference to staff, this precise issue actually has come up on the chamber question. So I would advise you to look about 10 years back. That was actually an agendized item. And so it's probably good to revisit at this point. So, okay, so without any further comments from our council, I would like to thank everyone this evening. We will hopefully proceed for the remaining months of our current term in 2022 in the same kind of manner we've been doing. I note the time is right before 9 o'clock. And so thank you. Thank you very much for a great discussion all around and for getting a lot done. We'll see you at our next regular council meeting of the Cupertino City Council. That's February 15th, 2002. For now, the February 1st, 2022 City Council meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you. Happy Lunar New Year, everyone.